Hey everybody, the Dragon and the Wolf, huh? If you go by fandom vibe, general fandom vibe, it was a pretty big success. It broke a lot of records too. Delivered on a lot of expectations. A lot of the things we kind of guessed at more or less happened. Of course, we always guess at ranges of possibilities, so we always at least find the right thing, even if it's not what we say. This is definitely what's going to happen.
I guess outside of ranges too, just to make sure we cover everything.
That's true. I do that sometimes too. It's fun to go outside of the established ranges, but generally speaking, the simple theories usually are the ones that are most likely.
I'll say that some of my friends who've been maybe more frustrated with this season were still pumped about this episode. So.
Yeah, they've done a good job with the finales in general. Like their history of big climactic moments, sometimes, you know, they haven't always gotten it right, but almost all the finales. I can't think of any of the finales where it was really like, we're like, that wasn't good. I mean, there's always some people that don't like it, but I'm talking about general fandom attitude.
And it makes sense that they know where they're going. Yeah. They might stumble on the way there, but once they get there, they're going to do it right.
Exactly, and that's what we said about the last episode. It did a lot of odd things, maybe odd as being nice, but regardless, we also said that we liked where it left things, even though we thought it was kind of awkward or even bad how they got to some of those places. And that played out here. You know, we got a lot of great payoffs, even though the roadmap was weird. So, you know, like, for example, this Dragon Pit. Not everyone liked the reasons for why they were in the Dragon Pit, but that was a good scene. I love that they were gathered, despite the fact that maybe the reasoning wasn't great, and how they handled it. It really allowed the show to do what it does best, which is let the actors do their thing. You know, you got all these, like, just people looking at each other and those gazes. Like, it was a lot of storytelling done by just letting the actors do their thing. And that's, Game of Thrones is one of its big strengths, you know.
I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent. You know, we have, like, a flow of, you know, ideas and things we want to cover here. But a thought that I had in my mind, thinking about how we maybe struggle with the details of how they get through the plot, right? And it's, you know, justifiable to call it bad writing sometimes. What I believe is that they want a certain conversation to happen, a certain line to be spoken, a tentpole moment that they need to hit, an image that they want to get on screen, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes to get there, they have to, like, skip around the time or forget that this character said this thing earlier, or why didn't they do this other thing that makes more sense instead? And I can imagine it's every now and then they might make some legit mistakes, like they forgot or overlooked something or didn't account for something. But I think usually they know it. They argue about it in the writer's room. They present a script. The producer says no. George is like, what about this one thing? And they go back to the drawing board and they end up where they end up. But as long as they get where they're going and they hit that moment and they have that image. And something that made me feel a little bit better about this, again, I'm not necessarily trying to justify the writing, and this is actually a two-part thought, is that there's some fan art out there of Dany on Drogon, on the ground, kind of reared up like he's about to breathe fire, and Jaime on a horse with a lance, kind of reared up like he's charging. Mm-hmm. Now that's a completely different image than what we saw. You know what I mean? Dany's on the ground trying to pull a spear out of Drogon, and Jaime's like actively charging. It's not like this showdown, you know. But that bit of art is beautiful and still conveys the right sentiment of that moment. Does that make sense?
You can imagine like some like in-world artist drawing it that way. After hearing about the moment from afar, it's been it gets exaggerated, and the people tell the story, and it's like, that's what happened.
That leads me to my second thought. Well, my first thought being that that's an awesome image, and it gets the sentiment right, even though the details are off.
Right.
I still appreciate it, right? And additionally, if you consider that maybe in general, for a work of literature or a moment in history, whatever, that there's a reality, a what actually happened, right?
Yeah.
But then there's the book about it. the story that someone told.
Yeah.
The TV show adaptation. All the, whether you're talking about Game of Thrones or, I don't know, the Bible or the Civil War or whatever it is, there's
so
going
many
to be
interpretations.
right some hodgepodge of different angles and interpretations and presentations of it that aren't all going to perfectly line up to be real. And even the reality of it probably has some things that don't make sense. Why did this character do this thing? Or some fantastic moment where someone ran a marathon faster than a person normally could, or whatever.
But you always get the sense that they're going to get back on track, even because they're like, well, they're just doing this to skip ahead to some other good part. So, but yeah, because we've had this before.
In the end, Moses brought the Ten Commandments or whatever.
A lot
the
of
details
people,
of what he said on the mountain might be lost, but yeah.
Like a lot of people quit season 5 because season 5 had so many things that went wrong. But those of us who stuck around, which is most of us, got a pretty awesome season 6. I mean, it had plenty of flaws. And then we get to season 7, which maybe, I don't know, I haven't put it into context with whether I like season 7 more than season 6. I don't really know yet. I'll think about that some more. But it doesn't matter. The point is, it has ups and downs, and they're still getting so much of this from George. They're still hitting the milestones George wanted them to hit, even if they do it very different ways. Anyway, behind the episode, also, that reveals how much the cast loved this, too. They get to all hang out in the same location. Some of them are, like, filming scenes in Iceland while others are in Spain, and they, like, literally haven't ever met in person. And then they're all just here. And the way they could kind of tell, they're all having fun, like hanging out, like at a convention. Like when we all gather at a con, we're like, we don't know each other in person. Well, you and I do. But a lot of us, you guys have been listening to our show for years. And some of us, at Con of Thrones, we met for the first time ever after knowing each other online for years. It's probably kind of similar for some of these actors. So,
in fact, at Con of Thrones, at one of the panels with the actors, they were talking about a bunch of different things, of course, but they were going over their death scenes. Ramsay was there and Mace Tyrell and so on.
Yeah.
And they were talking about the nature of filming it, how they felt about it, et cetera. The people, Joanna Robinson was like asking them questions. And as they told the stories, you kind of got the idea that these things that we see on screen as being these epic moments, these powerful moments, these emotional moments, when they're filming it, it's kind of tedious. They're like doing it over and over again, or maybe they're wearing something that's really hot, and there aren't necessarily the things that we're seeing aren't necessarily around. Sometimes maybe it's a green screen, or but
they have to act intense, like it's real, like every time, like over and over. Yeah,
so you can imagine when they're actually interacting with another actor, that's more enjoyable for them.
Yeah, they're just like, they're all going through that together. Boy, this is hard, huh? Like, yeah, but it's going to be awesome when it's done.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah.
I think that all the time when they're standing around in the sun with a lot of armor and stuff on. Like, God, it must be miserable.
Yeah, I mean, someone asked us, like, why does Barrack care about the cold? Like, maybe if they could do it however they wanted to, Barrack wouldn't care about the cold. He'd just be walking around. But that's a real person in Iceland. He's got to be covered up, that kind of thing. So, anyway, so let's get to our announcements, and then we'll dive into the meat of the material. We've got some super chats already waiting for us. We'll get to that in a minute. Of course, we still have the GRM box. We've now had 3 winners, and there are still 2 more to come. So enter by sending an email to westeroshistorygiveaway@gmail.com. Sean and I wore the shirts that came from that on Saturday for the Predictions and Theories episode. And a lot of good stuff in the GRM box. Coins, Dothraki language stuff, maps. It's really, really fun stuff. And you can look up the exact contents if you look at the link that Ashay has provided here on screen. Also, we're going to be doing some end-of-season stuff besides this last episode. This is not our final episode, and I don't mean our book-to-show episode won't be the final show coverage either. As we've done for several seasons in a row now, we like to do some fun kind of closing it all out. We review each episode individually. We kind of like to take a look at the season as a whole, and it's also a good time for us to bring in some guests. We have several people in mind. We haven't arranged it all yet because obviously a lot of these guests are people that have their own shows, and they have their own schedules to maintain, plus there's real-world jobs and things like that to keep in mind. But if you guys have people you want us to have as guests, feel free to send us a message, westeroshistory@gmail.com, or put it in the chat there. Maybe Ashay will take note, especially if the same names come up several times. And we will see what happens there. We're, of course, going to have a lot of people that you expect, some of the people that we've had from previous seasons, but we're also going to try to involve some new people as well, and we'll just see how that works out, and we'll let you know.
Maybe we can get Obama.
He's got more time to watch Game of Thrones these days.
He doesn't have a job to worry about, scheduling around.
And, of course, want to, of course, there's a lot of courses there. Thanks to Sean for being here again. It's been a great season all year long, and we'll be continuing after the season with more. You're going to be doing more show coverage and more just stuff with us. around the year. We have a lot of time in the meantime, and we have other shows we're going to cover, but we're going to be doing live streams on the semi-regular, and we'll have a schedule kind of start to kind of come more clear over the next coming weeks as we work it out. And Shea will, of course, be in some live streams as well. So we've got a lot more coming. And, of course, the book material from us is going to start rolling out on the regular again as well. So that is something to look forward to. Thanks to everyone of our patrons who has made this possible, in particular, Jeff Gnarly the Long Snapper, History of Westeros' First Sword, and, of course, our Dragon Rider patrons, starting with Lord Mark of House Joseph, the Snow and Winterfell, Rider of Mazla Cartho, and Chat Mod Extraordinaire. He's been pitching in not just as a patron, but as putting in his time and effort, helping us out on the chat end of things, and also helping us gather questions. So really couldn't ask for a more supportive guy. Also, we have Talanis the Talon, King of Gagassos, Rider of Talarius, the Red Dragon with scales, horns, and talons of midnight black, and Jinx of House Lier, Green Queen of the Rainwood, rumored daughter of a Woods Witch, Rider of Erogenia, Sylphic Albino Dragon with amethyst eyes and opalescent wings. And we're going to get to meet you in person soon. Jinx is coming to hang out with us at DragonCon along with a lot of other of our friends. We're going to be having fun with that. And maybe we'll get to do some sort of fun live episode with some of the Game of Thrones people as well, because they're going to be here as well. So fun times are coming. We'll try to share that with y'all. Okay. Let's see. We had a super chat from...
I should also say Kyle from Azora Hype.
Oh, yeah,
He'll
absolutely.
be here, and I'm going to try to do an episode with him on Thursday.
That is right. Kyle's coming as well. We're going to have a nice house full of YouTubers and podcasters, and what kind of crazy things will happen. That's right. It's super fans. So good times. So thanks to Perry from down in Mexico sending us a super chat ahead of time. There was no question that we saw attached, so appreciate the live donation. Jessica Pick says in super chat form, I won't be able to watch the live feed, but will tune in as soon as I'm able. Just wanted to say thanks for all the hard work you four put into these episodes. Well, I guess there's more than four of us, really, but we thank you for the thanks. It's very appreciated. Glad that you took note. Lady Lajara says, yes, been eagerly awaiting the Westeros history take on this. Well, we're about to get deep into that. Aaron Haybig, super chat, says, early question, what's with Tyrion's look on the boat? Yeah, that's something we talked about a bit last year. They kind of telegraphed it a bit when Tyrion said, well, it's going to happen. People are going to fall for you, blah, blah, blah. It's just, they can't help it. And then she kind of stands up and he's kind of just staring where she was sitting. Mm-hmm. And it definitely telegraphed this, like, he's falling for her kind of thing. I don't know that anything's ever going to go with that. It's ever going to, I think it's going to matter. It already does matter. But I think that's what the look was about. He can't help himself. He's a little jealous.
I think there's a lot to the look, not just jealousy or even emotions towards Dany. Remember how much Jaime in the opening scene was talking about family. Mm-hmm. And remember how Cersei tells Tyrion, you ended our line. You know what I mean? Like, whether it's fair to say that or not, but, all the Lannister kids, I wonder if Tyrion feels some obligation to have a child. Will he ever find a love that's worthy of marriage? Knowing that Cersei's pregnant and does he know about the betrayal? Is he worried about, even if he doesn't know about the betrayal, if in the end Dany and Jon team up, could Cersei beat them? Is he worried about, is he responsible for any of the Lannisters? You can see, I can imagine all kinds of guilt, feelings of loneliness or not belonging, aside from romantic emotions towards Dany or jealousy of Jon. I think there's a lot of other mixed up in that too, not to mention the idea of what their kids will be like, what kind of leaders they're going to be. Okay, it's happening. Are they going to be able to do this? Et cetera, et cetera.
Super chat from Danny Jeter, who says, what effect does winter and the White Walkers have on Essos? Well, I do believe, as far as we know, that, the weather should be having some impact over there without the White Walkers, though. There's no way for them to get there, as far as we know. It's been brought up that they can't walk on water or anything, or go under the ocean and walk on the floor and come out on the. As far as we know, that's not doable. But they do in the books. There's hints that it's going to play a role, the effect of winter. And certainly the Long Night on a global scale. Well, Long Night was on a global scale. That all the ancient legends from ancient times, from a variety of cultures, speak of this sort of thing had happened where the whole world was in darkness. They each talk about it in different ways, but it's kind of like how on our own world, if you look at a bunch of different cultures, they all have some sort of thing about an ancient flood, like in the Bible. And the Bible's not nearly the only place where that's mentioned. That's a lot of cultures have this sort of flood myth sort of thing, which means it probably isn't a myth. At least, but some of the details are certainly myths.
Yeah.
but in general, I think that's what we're dealing with in a lot of ways. And so that the White Walkers may not specifically come and attack Essos, but winter will. Winter will hit it, and they'll feel the effects of this winter. And if the winter is really powerful and overwhelming, it'll cause starvation and problems in other places as well. Super chat from Acre Frey. Now that Aidan Gillen's Game of Thrones career has finished, you should get him on as a guest. Well, that would be an amazing get. We'll try. I don't have holding out much hope for that.
We'll see if we can get him when we do our coverage of The Wire.
Yeah. Tommy Carcetti Littlefinger. That would be great, though. We've never really tried to get anyone famous as an interview thing. We haven't really done interviews, but I'm game to try. If he agrees to do it, we'll figure it out. From Hiragi Kawaii super chat: where is Gendry, and where is the boat heading? Winterfell, White Harbor, Eastwatch? I'm pretty sure it's headed to White Harbor. They talked about bringing the Unsullied up through White Harbor. That doesn't mean they're going to follow the same route, but that is where ships generally go when they're going north. They go to White Harbor, and then everything that's the main port there in the north, at least on the eastern seaboard. There isn't really a major port on the western seaboard at all, as far as the north goes.
If they're going to Eastwatch...
Yeah, they're going to need to turn around.
But maybe by the time they get there,
what happened here?
Past the walls,
Well, that's what happens when you don't have Night's Watch up there. You got to keep that thing maintained. It just falls apart.
What could the Night's Watch have done, though, right?
They couldn't have done anything. So I think White Harbor, and then they're going to go to Winterfell from there. Remember, they also talked about how Dany could go ahead on your dragon. She's like, no, I'm going to arrive with everybody else.
No, that doesn't answer the question about Gendry, though.
Gendry, we don't know.
Shay, you did a poll, right, on Twitter?
Yeah.
What was the feedback from that?
Going to Winterfell.
Going to Winterfell.
I think that's what I thought also.
Means. He's going to Winterfell.
Yeah, we definitely didn't see him at Eastwatch. We certainly didn't see him at King's Landing or at Dragonstone. So, and I really don't think they killed him off screen. Gendry's in the rubble there.
This is a perfect example of how an issue like this, I just consider that a group of people sat around and wrote this. And I don't think that all of them just forgot about Gendry. I think they made a decision. And the decision might have been as simple as, well, we can have him do this. Well, what about this? Well, he does that. He can't do that. Well, I don't know. Well, what about this? I don't know. You know what? Let's just hold on. Let's not pigeonhole ourselves into something now. We'll figure it out later. To me, that's what seems like the obvious answer, that they just made a decision to hold back because they weren't sure where they're going to go with this character.
You're right. They could have Gendry retroactively have been here or there. But they almost certainly won't retroactively decide that he's dead.
Right. I agree with that.
Killing people off screen like that just isn't... They just can't... It's already confusing enough for so much of the viewing audience. We are paying attention to Gendry. You guys are paying attention to Gendry, but the wider show fandom isn't asking, what happened to that dude with the hammer? Maybe one person out of 100 is asking that in the wider show fandom.
And if they do, they might even end up watching our show or rewatching the episode or asking their friends, But they probably aren't gonna. That person probably isn't like, well, they might have gone to Eastwatch or Winterfell or White. They've never heard of White Harbor.
Yeah, they're like, White Harbor, where's that?
Yeah. They don't know what the options are to narrow down.
So it's just kind of a big open question. That's a good call, though. By leaving it open, they have an option for later. Super chat from Elon Stieritz. What if Tyrion revealed to Cersei that Dany can't have children and promised that Cersei's child would be heir to the Iron Throne after Dany's death, making him concerned about Jon and Dany making a kid? Oh, okay. Well, surely Tyrion wouldn't have presented such an idea to Cersei. Well, if he presented that idea, I don't think he would be worried about her having a kid. If he thinks she can't have kids, then Jon shacking up with her shouldn't change that. He's like, oh, but unless he hooks up with Jon, then she can have a kid because he's... No, I guess he shouldn't be worried about that if that's what he said to her. Also, kind of doubt that there's anything said between Cersei and Tyrion of note that happened off screen. That doesn't feel right to me.
A lot of people think it did. I didn't even consider it till I saw people proposing the idea, and then I started to wonder about it, and I wonder about it extra since there seems to have been conversation between Sansa and Arya off screen. So maybe Tyrion did say, like, look, once XYZ happens, then I'll do this. I'll come back to you. If your child is born, I'll support the Lannisters, or something like that.
Doesn't seem like that would work out though if she's just planning on betraying them anyway.
Well, Tyrion also might have just lied. He just told Jon, just lie, man. Come on. Sure. Tyrion could have just lied to Cersei, but now he still might be considering the repercussions of the lie, or if he gets caught in a lie, or et cetera, et cetera.
Right on. Okay, so we have almost 800 people already.
Oh, nice.
So y'all hit the like button. We'd appreciate that. And certainly keep those questions coming and chat amongst yourselves as we proceed. That is part of the fun. Everybody hanging
coming
out.
into my shoulders. 800, that's a...
Yeah, y'all need 200 more to get Sean moving. Don't forget. Okay, looks like one more super chat. I guess it was just didn't have a question attached to it. Thank you, Andrew Duff, for the super chat. If you intended to attach a question, let Shan know. So as I was saying at the beginning here, simple theories usually are the ones that paid off. Remember us last year talking about Arya getting stabbed, trying to come up with all these things, and it was just, nope, she got stabbed and then got better, got healed. And when I say simple, I don't mean stupid. Simple is a word that requires context. Yeah. Simple can mean stupid, and it can mean just... keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
So, and in this case, I definitely don't mean stupid. Certainly there have been times where the show did something stupid. That's not what I mean here. We were certain there would be an R+L=J reveal here, partly because it hasn't been explained, and it needs to be made simple. It needs to be explained in simple terms. And oh boy, did they explain it simply. Like, they just came out and said all the things, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's the heir to the throne. His name is Aegon Targaryen. Like, all this, like, they stated it in unequivocal terms. And we kind of predicted that.
And we're also getting it from multiple different reliable sources, right?
Yes.
Not a rumor or something to wonder about. They're making it clear.
Bran watches it happen. Like, watches it actually happen and then explains what he's seeing as he's saying it. Like, on the other hand... Hi, my name is Rhaenys. This is my brother Aegon, and this is my other brother Aegon. That might seem counterpoint to the whole idea of not making it confusing. But again, if you think that through, the same viewers who don't know that Dany is Dany and not Khaleesi, they sure as heck don't know the name of Rhaegar's kids, so that's not a confusing thing to them. There's no confusion over the name Aegon. This is all like, oh, his name's Aegon. Like the other Aegon. No, they're just like, oh, his name is Aegon, period.
And I do like to think that the more casual viewer... if they were to make that connection and be confused by it, they would dig deeper. The information is out there. And that's how I started. I started off with these like, well, what about, isn't this? And I would add. I just happen to have an expert. Multiple experts to be honest. They could like answer my questions, give me some context, lead me in the right direction or whatever. And it's been really fun to dig deeper and to become part of this fandom. And to the extent that they might even do some confusing things, I hope. And I've even seen some of my friends come to me with this confusion. And as I answer it, they're like, oh, see, the light bulb's going off. And they just want to know more and more and realizing how much more there is to know. It's really fun and exciting to go through that.
Multiple of my friends last night who aren't people that I associate with being watchers of the show. You watch the show. They message me to say, are Jon and Dany brother and sister, or what is their familiar relationship? I'm like, no, she's his aunt. It's like Rhaegar's her sister, and he's Rhaegar's son. That. And like, oh, okay. Yeah, so yeah, still very incestuous. Not quite as incestuous as Cersei and Jaime. Pretty damn incestuous still, though. So here's another super chat from Aegon Starkgarian. Before I read your super chat, Aegon, I want to point out that this theory that his name was originally Aegon has existed since like 1996. Ever since people figured out R+L=J, which has been around since 1996, people were like, Aegon, Jon. That has been noticed. So this nickname that people are coming up with now, and I'm not saying you didn't come up with this. I'm not, this isn't a dig at you. I love this name, Aegon Starkgarian. That's cool. But it's becoming famous now, but it's been a thing for a long time.
Multiple people can independently come to the same conclusions.
Because it's right there. It is just, this just proves the point that the idea is just, Jon, Aegon. It's like take away the AE and it's gone, or Jon, it's there.
In real life, I'm sure there are a lot of names that are very similar that have a similar root name in the past. Paul and Saul, probably came from the same root name at some point thousands of years ago.
Absolutely. Now, so the actual question in the super chat is, if Dragonfire wasn't enough to stop the Night King, why was it capable of bringing down the wall? Well, I guess because, they're not, the Night King and the wall aren't, made of the same thing. The Night King is some sort of magical being who the effect of Dragonfire on him isn't quite clear at this point. We don't know that it's not enough to stop him. Dany didn't have time to look around and know who the Night King was and who the leader was, and maybe she could have, but
at the point when she does start to realize it, there's the danger. She's on a rescue mission.
Yeah.
Maybe they should have done something different there, but it's not like already the plan is questionable. Do we expect them in the heat of the moment to come up with a new, perfect, better plan? They're just trying to get out of there, right?
So I would say that the Dragonfire might actually stop the Night King. We don't actually know that it doesn't. It hasn't exactly. He's walked over Dragonfire that was burning the ground. He walked through regular fire, but we haven't seen him take a blast of Dragonfire to the face or anything like that. So I wouldn't go. I'm not sure that we could say it's not enough to stop him. But I do think that this magical blue fire coming from this dead dragon, I can buy that it takes down the wall. The wall's supposed to have some magic in it, but I don't think that's the kind of magic that it's got in it. It's still just a wall of ice with wards on it. So
there's several things here. One is I'm not sure that it's fire per se.
They confirmed that it is. They said
they
confirmed behind the scenes that it is blue fire. Yeah.
Okay. Regardless, even if it is fire, I think it's as much the power of the blast as it is the heat or the ice.
Yeah, just the force.
But it also could just be, it's magic. This flying zombie dragon, it can just have magic breath. It does whatever they want,
And this is another simple thing. We were like, maybe the dragon just can still breathe fire and that'll take down the wall. Sure enough, that was it. That was the simple answer paid off there. And if we're going down to Cersei, here talking about her thing, the simplest thing happened. She did agree to the armistice, but because she wanted to buy time. That's what she said to Jaime ahead of time. She's like, yeah, well, we can buy time. This is good for us. It didn't quite play out the way Jaime thought it would, but still, that's the thing. Another super chat from Andrew Duff. Thanks, Andrew. We still don't see a question attached, but appreciate that. Snow and Winterfell super chat says Team Aemon forever, or till George says otherwise. I agree. Now, Lord Mark and I had a conversation on Twitter about there's a lot of foreshadowing in the book of Game of Thrones for Jon's name being Aemon, not Aegon. However, I backed off on that. I still think it's pretty likely that his name is Aemon in the books. But I backed off on that a little bit because I'm a little I sort of doubt that they decided to name him Aegon on their own. I sort of think maybe George told them that, or maybe he could have told them Aemon, and they just were like, well, we'll go with Aegon. But the idea that he had this name certainly came from George. So they could have easily tweaked the name choice, but and also I want to point out it's more of a book thing, but there's a lot of foreshadowing in Game of Thrones that doesn't matter. There's foreshadowing for Jaime being king because that was his original intent when he wrote the manuscript in 1983. Jaime was going to murder his way to the throne, and so Bran in chapter 3, Bran sees Jaime and is like, now that's what a king looks like. Oh, that's foreshadowing, but no, it didn't happen. So Game of Thrones, this is a problem with the first book, is that George didn't figure out everything he wanted to do, and some of that stuff grew in the telling, as he would say. And so he changed his mind. He foreshadows things that don't happen.
I would not necessarily say it's a problem. A challenge of interpretation, maybe.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I think it's fair to call that a problem, but you're right. I like your description better. Mine's a little more of a whitewash. Also, super chat from Danny Jeter. What path will the White Walkers take? Marching south along the eastern coast, hitting Carhold and White Harbor, or will they fan out and take over the entire north before crossing the Neck? I feel like the option for them to split up and to go in different ways is maybe a possible thing that they'll explore. But right now, they're more intimidating as one large mass. And they're going to have to come back together if they're going to ever go to the south because the Neck is so tight and narrow. But they could spread out across the north, hitting the population centers. The problem is, there just aren't population centers in the north. Mm-hmm. White Harbor would be the largest population center. And that is kind of funny. This is a note I had prepared for later, but we may as well talk about it now. That's kind of funny. The first two castles, basically in the way of the White Walker's path coming down Eastwatch, Umber, Karstark. The two castles that we saw those families, talk about earlier this year, where Jon decided to let them, let the youngsters keep their families' castles. And well,
good luck, youngsters.
Yeah, so that's what Jon was actually giving. Jon was playing a long game with their punishment. Sansa's like, no, cut their heads. I was like, nah, I got this. We'll pretend. I'm going to pretend to do the right thing, but I'm going to just, take this castle. So I think that's probably what they're going to do, and I do think I think they're going to go to Winterfell. I think they won't go to. It's tempting to say they would go to White Harbor first because it's where all the people are, but Winterfell is farther north.
I don't want her to go to Winterfell. I don't want him to.
There's all this talk about everyone going to Winterfell. You thought King's Landing was a meeting point in this last episode, but just adding up everyone that's going to Winterfell right now, it's crazy. It's like it's like more than 2/3 of all the named characters that are all going to Winterfell. Like even Jaime. I mean, like Bran, Sam, Jorah, like everyone except for like Euron and Theon and Cersei.
Yeah.
And Cersei never leaves King's Landing except to go to Winterfell in the first episode. You know, that's it. As we pointed out in another episode, Cersei is the most untraveled or the least mobile. So a lot of possibilities, but I do think that it's going to be this again. This is a good place to go with the simple theory. I think they overrun some of the northern castles, but go straight for Winterfell after that.
I tend to agree with you, but I can't help but wonder, well, how does that play out? Like, is the final battle going to be fought there at Winterfell? Like,
no, they're going to have to retreat south probably. Like, a lot of people are going to die, and they're going to have to, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Really don't. It's a good call. Like, maybe they find out that the army's coming and like, we can't face that. Let's get the hell out of here.
Yeah, maybe they never get to Winterfell in the first place.
Maybe the walkers come to Winterfell and it's already abandoned.
Yeah. If Tormund and Beric are able to escape and send out word, send a raven from Castle Black or whatever, Bran has a vision, we have to leave. We have to leave Winterfell, you know. So,
finishing out this theme of the simple things, simple meaning good or making sense or just easy to communicate on television. You know, this is a difficult adaptation. We have to keep remembering that. All that stuff you pointed out before about them in the writer's room. You know, they have to also do that in a certain amount of time. Like if George is like, I don't know, he can just take another month to think or a year to think about it.
Decade,
yeah. But the showrunners are like, nah. I mean, look at the outrage when this was extended for like 4 months.
Yeah.
Like the season started. Now we're going to go into 2 years. So they made it simple with Sam and Gilly and the book thing. They didn't. Sam just copied that book. We weren't sure if they brought the book or if it would come up later, if the Maesters would later find it. You know, it was none of those things. It was just, Sam had actually copied that book already, knew it was up. He just hadn't connected the dots because he didn't care about Rhaegar's annulment. It didn't mean anything to him until there was more context. And it was like, all of a sudden that means a lot, you know, like once he heard that bit from Bran.
Yeah.
And Dany and Jon. Of course they're going to hook up. They're young and attractive, you know? And of course, and it's been on the table as a possibility since like book 1 or book 2, people have been thinking about this possibility. So, yeah. All right, another super chat from Snow and Winterfell. So now we know Cersei will be plotting. Jaime is up north. Golden Company on the way. Who is the final villain going to be? Night King or Cersei? Hard to tell now. Well, I guess maybe there isn't going to be a final villain. I mean, you mean like who will be the last villain standing? Maybe that's what he means by that. Because obviously there'll be villains at the same time, and Euron along with them, I assume.
Yeah.
But who will die first, perhaps, is the takeaway from this question. Cersei or Night King? That's tough. I feel like Cersei, but I don't know about that.
Yeah, I don't know either. It's interesting.
I never. This is a question that I have not considered at all.
I have been sort of assuming that Cersei's going to get her comeuppance, and I have also been assuming that the Night King will be defeated. But he might get defeated without being killed. Okay. And I guess that's also true of Cersei. But I still think that I think Jaime is. Or someone is going to kill Cersei. Yeah. So, I don't know. I'm going to predict the Night King outlasts Cersei. That's what I'm going with at the moment.
Okay. It could be that Night King is the one who kills Cersei if he comes all the way south and just destroys King's Landing. Because she obviously won't leave King's Landing. She never leaves. No. We've established that she's stuck there.
I think, here's the thing. I think for someone to kill Cersei, it has to be almost a complete surprise. Because we saw the Battle of Blackwater Bay. When Cersei thought they were going to lose, she was just going to take poison, give her kid and herself poison. She wasn't going to let herself be captured, right? And so I think that it's got to be someone stabbing her in the back, you know. If the Night King is overtaking King's Landing, that probably won't happen so suddenly that she can't just take her own life first. Or maybe burn it all down with wildfire before it happens or something like that.
That makes sense. Yeah, I could see that. I see someone say, or Cersei joins the Night King. Well, we don't know if such a thing is possible, but maybe she'll give her kid to Night King, like Craster. I kind of doubt that, but I don't know how she would learn that that's even a thing.
Next.
But yeah, I like thinking about it, even as unlikely as it sounds. Okay, so we're kind of already talking about King's Landing, and that's our first note here. So let's go there. Let's talk about King's Landing more specifically. We start off with the armies massing. You know, we got Bronn and Jaime looking down on the Unsullied, and then the Dothraki. There's really good music in this scene. And we get an interesting conversation here that I think it's easy to miss some of the things that might be going on here. I mean, they talk about it all comes down to penises, which, you know, it's easy to write that off as just them being silly, or making a joke, but there's a good point to it. You know, the point is, what do people fight for? What motivates people? You know, and jokes aside, you know, Jaime, that changed when they saw the army of the dead or the white. You know, that changed their perspective on what's important. Because
the idea of fighting for for money or land or power or even for family is a little, like in the end, maybe it is still for family. That seemed to be where Jaime's thoughts were centered.
He wanted his family to be on the side of fighting for the right side, for humanity. And when Cersei's like, are you kidding? You're the stupid Lannister. This was a trick, and he's like, but the army of the dead, that's real.
Yeah.
And she's like, so? We're going to use it to our advantage. And, she's not wrong that she has moves she can make that will make this work out for them. I don't expect it to. But she's not wrong that it is an opportunity. And she's not wrong that the North will be hit first and hardest. That was Tywin's opinion as well. Well, let them deal with it. And we'll... once they're both just weakened, then we'll deal with them.
And it might be a sound strategy normally, right? Like this army that has to go through the north will be picked apart by the time it gets south. But in this case,
she's forgetting that
it'll be reinforced. The farther they go, the better they get. Yeah.
This army doesn't get weaker because it fights people. It gets stronger when it fights, unless it loses outright.
But that said, though, flash forwarding a little bit from this moment at King's Landing, what we see at the end is Cersei's right. It would not matter if her troops were part of this battle or not. It doesn't really matter if there's 20,000 or 24,000 or some 20 ballistas added to it. That's not making a difference here. Something I'm gonna call it something mystical has to happen.
Yeah, it's not enough. Yeah, you do not want to line up 100,000 living humans to fight 100,000 dead ones, because the Night King can raise them at will during the battle. Like, human dies, you're on my team. Human dies,
he can mow them down with a freeze raid.
Yeah,
no
now
castle.
He has a dragon.
Think what the dragon did to the wall. Well, he could just totally destroy King's Landing. No castle can stand up to that, right? I'm assuming no castle could stand up.
I don't think so.
To what the dragon did to the walls.
I don't think so either. Yeah, maybe it could hold out longer. It won't just melt, but it would still just take it out.
Yeah,
Harrenhal was destroyed was badly damaged by Valerian's fire. It's permanently. You saw it on the show. It's devastated.
Yeah.
Just this pile of rock. It's still a castle because he didn't blow down the walls, but he took out the towers and parts of it. Super chat from Bonnie Bracken. Bonnie Bracken, you've got a Game of Thrones themed name. Always like to see that. Love the show. Thanks for producing such great content. I can see Jon abdicating the throne or ruling together with Dany. Maybe this is how they will break the wheel. Thoughts? Well, one thing I think we can be certain about is that Jon does not have the ambition to be the king, even if he is the heir. He doesn't have the ambition. He's not going to be like, oh, I'm the king, not you, Dany. That's not Jon Snow. I don't think he's like that at all. That would go against 7 seasons of his personality, very clearly spelled out for us. What do you think? I mean, so this does seem possible that he would, they could resolve this by marrying and being like, okay, well, we're king and queen together. Now, normally it's not usually that simple, but the show could simplify it that way. Normally you'd have to say, well, whose bloodline is this continuing through, or who's the king and is he the queen consort, or king consort, or is she the queen consort? I used the term dowager in a past episode incorrectly. Dowager is widow. So that's when you rule because you're the widow of the ruler, or the widower of the ruler. And so consort is the marriage partner in the royal marriage. So if you're the queen and the king marries you, he's the king consort. You're still the queen because you inherited the throne. And if you're the king, the queen marries you, she's the queen consort. So, but I don't know, the show doesn't have to deal with that. They can just be like, hey, we're co-rulers. The books would need to spell that out a little more. But
it would be interesting to deal with. And maybe they even deal with it in a superficial manner. But I think that the show is ending at the end of the battle against the undead. It's not ending with the drawing up of a new constitution for Westeros. You know what I mean? It might matter that their kid is legitimate no matter what. That's what might matter, something like that. And I totally agree with you. I think Jon doesn't really want to be king of the North. He was kind of thrust on. He's like, oh,
he didn't
fine.
Want that. Yeah.
Only to the extent that it gets people united against the White Walkers, And something I've been curious about is how Dany would feel. She's been on this mission to be queen pretty much just because she thinks she's supposed to be queen, right?
Yeah.
And on this mission, she's taken on some noble causes, right? Like freeing slaves or whatever. But even as Tyrion presents the idea of hey, maybe we should think about how rulers should work. No.
Mm-hmm.
Just get me on the throne. We'll talk about this later. Just get me on the throne.
Yeah.
Well, what if all of a sudden she's not supposed to be on the throne? What if it's actually supposed to? Does she shift her gears? Does she say, okay, all right, well, I'll bend the knee to Jon, and I'll do what you say, and I'll use my dragons the way you want, and I will listen to Tyrion about how we should choose rulers in the future? Or does she still... Now, obviously, if they're in love and getting married and having a kid, some of this conflict is gone. You know?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I think the simple thing is. They just won't have this conflict because they don't need to, you know?
Yeah. I think that they'll certainly have some sort of conflict. I think the showrunners have indicated that there will be some sort of conflict because of this. I don't know. What we don't know is how much the incest aspect will matter and how much the throne issue. I can't imagine it won't matter at all. Like, what's the point of Jon being the trueborn son of Rhaegar and Lyanna if there's no conflict over it all? It's completely pointless if there isn't something to do with it, right? Otherwise, it's just it doesn't matter.
Well, I sort of see what you're saying, but I still think it matters to have the irony there. Does that make sense? Like, the having irony and mystery, even if at the end it doesn't turn into something, still provides, at a minimum, entertainment and I don't know, it adds to how deep we get into it or how much we look at it or care about it. There's still value to that, even if it doesn't. Yeah. I mean, I considered that it's impossible that everyone knows anything about it. I'm thinking back during season 2, you know, that everyone that knows might just die. And that no one ever finds out this secret. That I have secrets that probably no one's ever going to know when I die. And
this secret is definitely coming out, though.
Right, I agree, it is coming out. But I'm really pointing that it might come out. And, like, for example, one thing that it will do is it'll make it easier for Sansa to just be Queen of the North. Like, it's not like she's holding the seat till Jon comes back. He's the freaking overall king, so she could just be Queen of the North, you know? That's a thing that's a way it can matter.
Sure, she's already Lady of Winterfell, though. I don't know that even matters. You know, she wouldn't be Queen of the North.
Right now, though, I think
she already is.
Yeah, except I think it's temporary till Jon gets back right now, where it would become permanent if Jon went to sit on the throne.
I guess so. But here's the thing: these story points line up really well for a simple problem here. And again, if we stick to the simplicity, we have they have this easy solution: just get married. No, they don't, because it's incest. So that is the problem. So they have this it's a simple solution that's taken off the board. The simple solution isn't necessarily there.
I guess that this isn't covered as much in the show, but Cersei does seem to think, whatever, I'm pregnant with Jaime's kid, and I'm just going to tell everyone.
Oh, no, I don't. I'm not saying it's a problem for the population. I'm saying it's a problem for them personally. Like, ooh.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Well, I still wonder for them, if you keep in mind, I assume Jon knows that Ned Stark's parents were cousins, right? They haven't talked about this in the show, but
so much farther apart, though. That's cousins. Yeah. Like this is aunt and nephew. This is still a lot closer.
But I'm merely pointing out how much precedent is set, because
Again, doesn't matter though. Because I'm not making that point. I don't care about the precedent. The precedent's there. I'm not arguing that. I'm only saying that they might hate the fact that they're related and not want to marry because of that.
You think that even though the precedent is there, they won't get, even though the precedent is there and they're already in love and sleeping together and maybe even have
a kid. If they find out they're related, they may not be sleep. They may stop wanting to sleep together. That's what I'm saying. It's a personal issue, not a legal problem.
Okay, even at that point, let's say that you're right about that. Wouldn't they maybe still be okay with the political marriage?
They might. They might just be decide to get married and not sleep together. Yeah, they could do that. Also, and there's other things, but anyway, you can see basically as this conversation reveals, it's hard to tell because there's so much of it is personal. Like, how are Johnny and Dany going to feel about these things? We don't know yet. Like, their personal feelings are going to set the stage for all of this. You know, like you said, the precedent exists, but if they're personally against it, the precedent doesn't matter. But if they're for it, then it fits great. So we'll have to see. All right, Josh Miller. The theme drops when Tyrion goes into frame during Jon and Dany scene. Wonder what that means. Do you think he made a secret deal with Cersei, or is he jealous? This is a super chat, by the way. I think it means he's jealous because like we said before, there was the moment where there's already been hints that Tyrion is attracted to Dany. Like that's been established, not necessarily like unsubtly, but it's there. If you look, especially in that one scene in season 6 at the end when he's staring at the spot she was sitting at, that was the big one.
I don't think that he's not jealous, but I do think that there's way more to it than that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and we just have yet to learn what it is, but it's certainly a part of the setup for season 8. Is Tyrion? It wasn't just Dany and Jon hooking up. There's more to it. Yeah. There's all this stuff we talked about with their relationship that they don't even know about yet. I mean, their family connection, Jon's real identity, and now Tyrion, maybe some sort of love triangle thing, or maybe something a little more sophisticated than just a love triangle. Super chat from Gildor.
Love rectangle. Love octagon.
Love is a wheel. Love is a ladder. Love is chaos. Chaos is a ladder. Why? Okay, so again, Gildor and Glory in Super Chat. Why don't the Night King and the White Walkers care about Essos? How are Slavers Bay, Bravos, Pentos, etc. going to deal with this, if at all? Well,
one thing at a time.
Yeah,
Who says they don't care?
They they don't care about Essos. I mean, maybe they do care about Essos. They just don't have a way to get there. And if they were created by the children of the forest with a purpose, if they are just, they seem to have some intelligence, but that doesn't mean they have sophisticated purpose. If their purpose is simple, like their prime directive was kill humans because that's what the children designed them for, then there are humans on the other continent, but I don't know, maybe their goal is to take back this continent for the children. I don't know. We just don't know what
They're like the Dothraki.
Yeah, they just like killing.
It's not that the Dothraki don't care about who's in Westeros. They just don't want to go across the water.
Yeah, there's enough for them to worry about here. But we do think that if the Long Night comes from them, if they bring the Long Night with them, that'll affect the whole planet, and the whole planet will have, reason to come help. Not that that's very likely, except for Melisandre. That's still the dangling plot line that seems to matter. As Euron is over there getting the Golden Company, we see Melisandre is doing something, and those forces may arrive on Westeros to help or to force the issue a bit. So I think they'll come into things, but I don't think we'll see some grand army of collected from Slaver's Bay, like all these different people all showing up to help. You never know, though. I guess something like that could happen. Someone needs to take a white over there and show them. Look, this is real. From Andrew Duff, Night King is Lord of Light. He made Mel save Davos to protect Jon, so he became king. Meet Dany and go north. Clegane led them to him. Thoughts? Well, it's so hard to, if you're going to get into the whole realm of the gods are kind of moving the pieces on the table and they can do it in really clever, subtle ways, there's really a million possible interpretations for how the gods could have set all this into motion,
I don't think the Night King is the Lord of Light, but I can't imagine he's following a vision from the Lord of Light, that he, in the same way that Melisandre and Beric, other people seem to be, even people who don't necessarily know or believe or care about the Lord of Light, like even Thoros himself is like, kind of, I guess I'm a priest, oh, whoa, I'm really having these visions, Sandor didn't know, it was like worship Lord of Light, but suddenly had these visions. Maybe the Night King is too. Maybe the Night King is also getting visions from the Lord of Light.
Yeah, that's a good call. Acre Frey super chat. I wonder what Tywin's view would have been to see that undead person. Would he have done more of a Jaime or more of a Cersei? He's smarter than both of them, but so focused on strengthening his family. It's a good question. A good what if. How would Tywin have reacted to the undead army? I think he would have. It's tough to say. He would have recognized the threat to the realm, and he kind of like Stannis would. Doesn't want to lose the kingdom. He's fine with the wildlings overrunning the north because he feels like he could probably clean that mess up later. But if the dead take over the north, that's losing a big chunk of the kingdom.
I feel like based on everyone else's reactions, Cersei was shook. Jaime
they were.
Brienne said, "Fuck loyalty." Everyone was reevaluating everything. And I don't think Tywin is composed or wise or whatever he is. I think he would have been struck by this. Now, he, similar to Cersei, might not have been like, okay, drop everything, we'll do what you guys want. He might still have had some kind of
He would have a plan. He would have had a plan for after. He would be planning out the whole thing. Yeah. He may not agree to the armistice with the plan of breaking it because that's, to him, maybe that's dishonorable. He doesn't care about honor. He cares about perception of honor,
Exactly, yeah.
So he may not want that stain on the family, but he would have some plan.
He probably would have had the wherewithal to bring up the thing that bothered me so much is if Jon's saying, I can't do what you want, Cersei, because I already told Dany I'd do what she want. Dany just has to say, okay, Jon, stay in the north. Okay, Cersei, I'll stay in the north. That's what Dany told me. Like, okay, everyone's happy. I think that would have occurred to Tywin as a way to negotiate this out,
Yeah. Dan Campbell says, super chat, whites are notorious deadbeats. I see what you did there. So won't the Iron Bank back the forces dedicated to defeating them rather than Cersei? Well, that is possible. We'd certainly talked about the possibility of the Iron Bank changing sides at some point. But I think they gave a pretty good reason for why they're not supporting Dany and why why they wouldn't want to support Jon, especially now it's too late for supporting Jon because Jon bent the knee to Dany.
They might support Cersei if they think Cersei is going to use the Golden Company to go fight the North.
They have this
to fight the White Walkers.
They might see this just as cynically as Cersei does. Like, let her strategize, let the Northerners be the heroes, and then clean up the mess afterwards and reestablish the rule of law. With the kings, with you in charge. They don't have enough reason to change off yet, especially given that it kind of sounds like the money's already been spent. Euron's already gone to get the Golden Compass.
Yeah.
So that money's already been spent, apparently. So I think they're going to see
Cersei was
it
talking
through.
like, the value of gold. You should listen to Dad. Euron's on this mission.
Yeah.
Like, it seems like that's a done deal.
So I think the die has been cast in that regard, and maybe they'll change their mind. But I think they're going to at least see how this early part plays out, rather than shifting forces so quickly. Because right now there's no one else for them to back. They can't back Dany because the reason they've already said they don't want to back it. That hasn't changed. Sure, the calculus has changed as to who else is laid up, who else is arrayed against them. But the total, the bottom lines are still, as far as what they want, are still the same. They still want this regime in charge when it's done. Perry from Mexico, thanks again. Why is aunt/nephew worse than cousins? They share no parent, but both share grandparents. Well, there is closer, in terms of real world genetics, as far as I understand it, that you're more likely to produce to have problems with inbred genetics are more likely to happen the closer along the bloodlines. Yeah, sharing. I don't think so. In other words, they're closer to the same parent. They're both. They're both the same. John's grandfather is Dany's father. And it's closer than cousins. So I think that's where that's why these taboos exist in the real world, is because of it produces inbred children. That's why incest is taboo in all.
That's one
around
reason,
the world.
but there's another reason also.
Okay.
Because oftentimes it's an older brother taking advantage of a younger sister. That's another reason that incest would be so forcefully fought against. Does that make sense?
Okay.
And so to that end, it has as much to do with like the relationship you have with the person that you grew up with, that you have trust with, et cetera,
Yeah.
than it does to the potential genetics. Because there's teenagers falling in love. Jaime and Cersei aren't like, we can't do this because it might affect the genetics of our kids, assuming they even have that understanding in the first place. And if you go far enough into history back before they were even seeing these things play out or understood that might be the reason they're playing out, it's you can understand parents not wanting their older son to take advantage of the younger daughter,
Yeah.
So I think that's at least as strong.
That's a good point.
And so if the cousins are separated, or the aunt and the son are separated, they weren't raised together, it might be looked at differently.
Okay. Yeah, I see that. And it's fair to say, to your point, Perry, that it may be viewed very differently in Westeros. I am certainly putting my real world attitudes into this, which I usually try to take out. But because we don't necessarily know, certainly the faith of the Seven that says that incest is bad. They're very against it. It was one of the big problems for Aegon the Conqueror's regime in the first place, especially when he died, because his kids were the product of incest, but he technically wasn't. His grandparents were, but his immediate parents were not. So they kind of got around that initially, and then it became a problem later. So yeah, so maybe it's less of a problem in Westeros than I'm making it out to be, because obviously, like you said, there's a lot of first cousin marriages. There's first cousin marriages, not even second. Like Ned's parents were first cousins. Tywin's wife was was his first cousin. This kind of thing, So maybe
into the 1600s, at least, it was just common across Europe, So
yeah. Okay, so next question, another super chat from Baron von Mogadon. Cheers for all the content, Sean, Aziz, and Ash. Can I give a shout out to my slumbering girlfriend Rachel to freak her out when she watches? Shout out to Rachel.
Hopefully she's not sleeping through this.
Yeah, you'll have to just rewind that part over and over. Just shout out to Rachel, shout out to Rachel, shout out to Rachel. He also says Tormund and Beric are dead, yeah? No. They are definitively, it's not just a matter of thought. It's been confirmed by the behind the scenes on their website. Tormund and Beric are not dead. It's maybe harder to catch, but if you see, when everybody else was running down the stairs, they ran west, which was smart. They ran along the wall rather than down
the wall.
Yeah. It's like, imagine them going towards the next castle down the wall, which is pretty much their only choice now, because all the ladders and everything are just gone. So you could see them, like Tormund saw the wall collapse around them, like right in front of them. They were like right on the edge, nice action movie moment. They barely got across in time, but they're around. So they're that's cool. So we're glad to see that, because that would be kind of a just an unsatisfying way to go out, and
Yeah.
On one hand, it would kind of get us back to the Game of Thrones has kind of backed off on killing main characters this last couple seasons. They definitely killed some major characters off, but we've pretty much always seen it coming. It's like, oh, Littlefinger's gonna die. Sure enough, Littlefinger died.
I think that if they had died there, that A, they would have made it more clear, and B, the opening scene of next season would have been them opening up their blue eyes and droning into the massive zombies.
Yeah.
Which that might still end up happening, but I don't. Obviously, or clearly, it's not. They're not dead yet. So.
Danny Jeter super chat. Do you think Hardhome should be Jon's go-to story? Yeah, I guess so. Although pretty soon he won't need stories. It'll just be widespread. This is happening. I mean, now they're in the north now. Now it's getting to the point where he's not going to have to prove it to anyone. You know, it's still going to be a few people that maybe doubt it, but
the Dragon Pit might be the go-to story now.
Okay, yeah, and it just
the Queen saw it with their own eyes. Both queens saw it with their own eyes. You know?
Yeah, it's true though that'll still be, you know, it's still an important object lesson. Super chat from Christopher King. Do you think that Tyrion betrayed Dany and Jon off screen with Cersei? That's why he last seen you standing in the shadows contemplating the betrayal. We're getting this question a lot. Yeah. We do not think that that happened, although it's possibly on the table. I just do not think that there is enough reason for him to want to be with Cersei. You know, they hate each other. That hasn't changed. You know, Cersei still hates him, even though she was willing to do this. And the reason she was willing to go along with this was it's all part of her play. Like, she got Tyrion. She basically acted like Tyrion was having to get her to, you know, having to bring her around again. But that was all staged. She was planning on accepting the armistice all along. She just wanted to, because that's been her plan all along, was to accept it and then stab them in the back. So I think Tyrion thought he was going in there in danger and being, you know, to do something that really needed to be doing. But Cersei was going to agree to it no matter what. She was going to agree to the armistice, I think, almost any way possible.
I mostly agree with you, but I still think that whatever her plan might have been, there are at least potential monkey wrenches thrown into it. I think that she really did reevaluate when the zombie came. Yeah. And I think she may have really evaluated when she considered actually killing Tyrion right then and there. And she might have really reevaluated when Tyrion recognized that she was pregnant. Now, each time she reevaluates, she might stick with the same plan. But she might not. She might have made alterations to the plan. And she also has to explain this to Tyrion in some way, too. And they didn't show us that. What was it that he said and she said? Like, she definitely didn't say, fine, I'll do it. I plan on betraying you anyway. You know, well, although, what if she did say that? Yeah. What if she did tell Tyrion, look, I'm going to betray you anyway. I'll go ahead and go out there and tell them all I'm behind this. I'll send an army north. But, you know, in the end, I'm still planning on being queen or whatever this happens. So Tyrion like, yes, I know that, but I'm worried about right now. He just got done telling Jon, right now, we're screwed. Like, I understand your honor and all that, but right now we're screwed. You should have just lied. So Cersei and or Tyrion could have lied, even knowing that the other was lying, just because they need to get past this moment right now, you know.
Makes sense. From Andrew Duff, Night King has more powers than Three-Eyed Raven and is posing as Lord of Light, similar to what Bran did to Hodor, prophecy manipulation against freedom. Well, that's interesting. Now, I tend to be down on convoluted behind the stuff things because they can't explain this. This would be difficult for them to present to the audience. Like, it's not hard to present to us. We get it right away. When you say this, I'm like, oh, I get where you're coming from. But the problem is, how do you present that to the people who don't know who Khaleesi is, or that her name is Daenerys? How do you get to people that needed to have it explained what R plus L equals J means? Like, we knew R plus L equals J was spelled out. We didn't need this confirmation scene, but we knew it was coming because we knew that the greater fandom didn't get it yet. And I think this is maybe too complicated to explain to the fandom. And I also don't think there's no way to explain it. We can't, how would they ever show that Night King is this? Also, we saw Night King get created by the children, and maybe that he can get in people's heads and do fake prophecy. I don't know. I can't say this is impossible, but this idea has the flaw of not being presentable to the fandom.
Yeah. It might even be something that happens in the books, because the books could elaborate more and show you things, get in someone's mind, and so on. But
of course, obviously that, you know, we have to take into account the fact that Night King may not even be a thing in the book. But you're right. That is possible in the books, absolutely. Snow and Winterfell says, Dan and Dave said there will be conflict over Jon and Dany, but they also said there'd be conflict between Sansa and Jon. So I doubt it's that serious. And there's only 6 episodes left, he says. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, to be clear, this conflict with Jon and Dany, I do not expect it to make them to go to war with each other. I don't expect it will create some sort of lasting rift. I agree that it's going to be more like Sansa Arya or Sansa Jon, where it's like, oh, but you know they're going to work it out.
Yeah.
You know they're going to work it out. So I agree. So it might be kind of like, you know they're going to work it out, whatever. But it may have some, you know, ripple effects on other things that may maybe matter. Okay. Firefly Phoenix super chat. Why did Jaime, for the first time ever, ride away on a black horse, not a white one? All the rest of the time we have seen him on a white horse, an odd counterintuitive symbol of the shining knight in white armor who does good deeds. Now, the black horse, when he leaves to kind of go off and do good things. I didn't catch that.
I didn't either. I did take note of him putting on a black glove
To
over
cover
his gold hand.
He didn't want anyone to know who he was.
And then the snowflake came, and I decided that they weren't using any symbolism with the black or the gold, that it was just for us to see the snowflake. But when you point out he was also on a black horse, which I think you're right, I think he's been a white horse. Yeah, I
cool.
love that you caught that.
Yeah.
I'm jealous that you caught that. It's the type of thing I want to catch, yeah.
Very nice. Good job there, Firefly Phoenix. And another super chat from Bonnie Bracken. Could the Valonqar prophecy be fulfilled by Cersei dying in childbirth? The little brother being of Joffrey/Marcella Tommen. Extra irony if it's a dwarf. Shout out to my husband, Mike. Shout out to Mike Bracken, I guess, if Bracken's your real last name. Otherwise, shout out to Mike of uncertain last name. I don't know. I think that's certainly... I guess that would fulfill the Valonqar prophecy, but the thing is, the Valonqar prophecy hasn't actually been mentioned in the show. It's just the only part that's been mentioned is the part of her children dying. That part's in there. There's no the little brother's going to strangle you. That part isn't in the show. So Cersei's death, we just don't. We have less ability to predict her death in the show than we do in the books, because in the books we're kind of given a prophecy to her death, but in the show we don't have that. So. And her arc has changed, as we know, dramatically from her book arc because of all these combining of plot elements. Oh, Snow in Winterfell says we have about 950, only 50 away from a dance here.
949,
980,
Oh,
983. Oh goodness! Tell your friends, people.
To
if each one of you tells somebody, we'll
get to 2,000.
We'll get to 2,000.
If each one of you tells 6 people, we get to 6,000, and we do a 24-hour stream.
987. I can't even talk about the podcast anymore. I'm just like dude staring at the odometer as it's nearing 100,000 miles. Like, oh, it's going to get there. Okay, well, I have to make myself move on.
Pull up a song on my phone for each one, or...
Another super chat from Dornish Dan while we await the perhaps epic reaching of 6-figure live viewers. Tuned in late, so apologize if I already asked.
6-figure.
4 figures. I don't know, 6 figures. I don't know where that came from. Maybe that's the size of the army of the dead. 100,000. I don't know where I got that. Anyway, the continuing Dornish Dan super chat. Jaime will give away Cersei's plan once he gets north, so won't Daenerys take appropriate action? Yeah, that is that'll happen so fast in the moment. Maybe Cersei didn't fully think that through when she let Jaime go. But yeah, that's a big problem for her now, that her intent to stab everyone in the back is, known by Jaime. He may just tell everyone. Now, maybe she thinks he won't tell that part of the plan, or maybe she thinks, well, they're probably going to figure this out anyway,
or can't do anything about it anyway.
Yeah, I'm not sure. That's true. Like, that is the big, fly in Cersei's ointment. Is there?
Apparently.
We hit it?
Yeah.
All right.
Whoa, it says exactly 1,000 when I look at the screen.
6,
Oh my goodness. All right, well, we're going to have to... Okay, you can just do a little preview here.
I don't know. I kind of legitimately had a plan to film a video. I have a friend who is like an amateur filmmaker.
The Dance of the Shawns.
Yeah.
A dance with Shawns.
You should dance for someone, and I think you should also do that.
Well, I need a song. I need some music.
You pick your song.
And
my phone.
I pick All Night Long by the Mary Jane Girls.
We have a super chat from Purple She-Wolf just sending us some love. Thank you for that. And Aaron Habig, big super chat saying, let's hit the like button for dancing time. Yes.
People say you have to actually dance right here.
All right, I will.
If you want to do one.
Okay, move that chair aside.
Are you going to pull the camera over here? Can you see?
I'm gonna do that.
Because you can't see my feet.
No,
dancing.
I'm going to pick the camera up. I thought you were going to go out
I'm going to
there.
come over here?
I thought so. This is a big digression, but it's worth it. We got to 1,000.
Will you be able to see whether or not it's centered or whatever? I don't know how good the camera's going to be for this.
I can watch
I'm going to pick the camera up.
Yeah.
And I'll watch
and you'll watch. Oh, it'll
Here we
be
go.
there. You don't have it paused. You can't see it there. So
yeah.
You have to turn this.
Oh, okay. This is quite the change of pace live here that we're doing.
Yeah.
Not the typical
standard.
review episode for History of Westeros.
Shoes.
Not typical for anyone,
Okay,
really.
Here you go.
Okay, I'm watching.
Okay, ready? I'm turning.
Do it.
Can you see Sean?
Yes. Raise it just a little bit.
Feet?
Can you see his feet?
Yes.
Good?
That's it.
Okay, here, I'll play this for you, Sean. Hold on. I hope they can hear that okay. Make sure to...
Hey boy, would you meet me on the roof tonight? I got a surprise.
Yes. This is what winning looks like right here. Making history. Marry me, Sean. OMG, this is awesome. They have legs. He's just warming up. Jeff Hartline says erect. The dance that was promised. The show goes on. Magic is real, everyone. Panties hitting the floor. Amazing dance skills. What's that? Live? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Dancing with the Starks. There we go. The podcast won't be nearly as good this week. People commenting on our books and all that. Okay.
All right. We got a minute into that, but no, Sean will record a very nice
we'll
video
that's just for now,
y'all.
folks. That's just the short-term version. Now we got to fix our camera again.
Do you guys want to look at that view
Yes.
for the rest of the episode? Maybe? I do.
Thank you, everybody, for being good sports while we did that. That was awesome. Everybody seemed to like it. Well, at least
all
almost
white
everybody.
long, someone said.
All white long. White boy got moves. I see that the comments are good. Why is his shirt still on?
It's very fitting, Sean, that you're wearing your get down.
Oh, that's
shirt.
right.
You got
Yeah,
down.
I've got a disco ball.
Yeah, you were all
Song
prepared.
correct.
Man, that's what we should have had Jinx give for us.
Okay, yes. I can't believe we made it happen at the last minute. That's awesome. Thank you. The fandom really came together for that moment.
Yeah.
That is awesome. I'm so impressed. We made it happen. Nothing. When I started podcasting, I never would have thought anything like that would ever
That was
happen.
the direction we were going to go.
Yes, that was woohoo, Dancing Sean. Best time to tune in. Thanks, Jessica. That was a super chat there. Okay, let's see if we can find our bearings. And yeah, looks like we had another couple super chats fly by during that. All right,
Yeah.
take a minute to get back into the swing of things here, but we'll get there. Okay.
Grab the super chats for you. There was just 2.
Okay, cool. Well,
This is just the super chat episode so far.
Yeah, I know. It's
True.
We'll never move forward.
Okay, so from Andrew Duff, it's hard to just go back to questions after that, but we gotta do our thing. Do you think God's Eye and Howland Reed will play a part in season 8? And what do you think Bran will do after he's played his part in telling Jon his heritage? Okay, that's a great question because I am now backing off a bit on my Howland Reed prediction. Not only did Bran say I'm the only one who knows, which he knows isn't true. He saw Howland Reed there. He even and the Three-Eyed Raven, the old Three-Eyed Raven, even said that's Howland Reed. Mira's father. I went back and watched that scene and he says that. Like, they've made it a point to point out who he is. But now, like, what is he going to do? Like, the parentage reveal has happened, you know?
It's also, I also want to maybe give Bran credit for, like, he can see everything and he can know everything, but he can't, like, see it all at once. He can't remember everything. Wait. He said he remembers everything.
He just doesn't know where to look, like Sam said. Like,
Yeah.
Sam pointed him in the right direction, and he looked. You know, it's like he can't just see everything
But I
at
guess
once all
maybe
the time.
he doesn't realize Howland Reed is still alive right now. But he should. He was traveling with Mira. No way in all that time she didn't say something about going to see her dad.
Yeah.
It's a little frustrating.
Yeah, that was slightly annoying. But I think that may have just been a simplification for the viewers. Like, yeah, there's one other guy who knows. You know, like, yeah. But as for the second part of the question, what do you think Bran will do after he's played a part in telling Jon his heritage? I think there's still going to be he still has a lot of value in, you know, his powers perhaps helping to fight Night King. Night King seems to be much more powerful than him, but Bran is growing in his powers and they may continue to increase.
I have sort of theorized that it's possible that the Night King has made an effort to come forward many times in the past and the Three-Eyed Raven stopped him. But this time he can't do it. This time he can't.
Yeah.
The Night King's built up enough power. The Craster's kids, or the rise of magic with dragons, or something about this one is different, and the Three-Eyed Raven couldn't stop it.
That is a good
And
point.
so maybe in the future, if the Night King is defeated but not destroyed, right? Maybe he'll come back again, and Bran will have to stop it somehow. You know.
How many viewers do we need for Aziz to dance? Ooh, more.
1003.
Eliana gives super chats. Make it rain, tip your dancers. Yes, please do. Or our dancer in this case. That's a... Oh, and... Okay, so Dornish Dan says, super chat, I'm completely bumble freaked. Bumble freaked? Can we pause for a minute? I am bumble freaked by your use of the word bumble freak, because that is awesome. That's like, for the Sunny fans in the show, that's like, it's like, can we stop? And you keep using that word jabroni, and it's awesome. That's just like, I just want to appreciate the word bumble freaked. And so anyway, the rest of the sentence is, I'm completely bumble freaked by talk of Bran being the Night King. How would that work? And is there any indication that it could happen in the book? I think no and no. I think this is a silly theory. No offense to anyone. We see Night King be created. We see it happen. That's not Bran. That's Vladimir Furtick, the stuntman who plays Night King.
I still don't buy this theory, but the argument they make is that Bran travels through time.
Yeah. Of course, when you say time travel, then anything is possible. Then it's like, well, I can't say anything that absolutely disproves the theory if that's what people are hinging it on. But yeah, I just don't think so.
And it also, the idea that Bran could go back in time and affect things, like if he affected Hodor or he called out Ned's name and he responded to things like this.
Yes.
But one, keep in mind, I think that just because it kind of happened one time doesn't mean that's the way things work.
Yeah.
Right? But even if it did, even if you say that's the way things work, and that's the direction the writers are going to go with the show, they're not going to resolve this through the skills and determination of the characters. They're going to resolve this through Bran time traveling. You know what I mean? Okay.
Yeah.
Even if all that were true, then still Bran couldn't the Night King be Ned? Couldn't Bran have caused Ned to do something different at the Tower of Joy, and he went through time because Three-Eyed Raven also went into someone else at some other point, and that person went to the future and had it. You could just make up anything at that point. I just don't think that's what they're doing.
One of the reasons I didn't take this theory seriously when I first saw it is I read it when it was a new theory, or at least I think when it was new. I mean, who knows what other dark corners of the internet this came out of. But the person who submitted it made some extremely basic errors in their understanding of how a lot of things work. And I'm forgetting what some of those details were, but the person posited this because of this and this because of this. Those were complete assumptions. So a lot of what this theory is based on is smoke and mirrors. So it's resting on very fringy concepts in the first place. So I think the theory got popular, I think, because a lot of like clickbaity sites picked it up, because that's what they do. They like to pick up these fringe Game of Thrones theories and put them on, make them clickbait titles. Could Bran be the Night King? And people got excited about it. But no, really, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. No offense to anyone who likes that theory, but no, I just really, really don't think so.
Also, I will point out that, as I've pointed out many times, there's a huge audience for this show.
Yes.
And a lot of people like conspiracy theories, and some slice of fans of Game of Thrones are going to like conspiracy theories, and most conspiracy theories are hard to swallow, have some big holes, but people still want to believe in...
They're fun. The idea of considering Bran as the Night King is fun. I would never say don't have fun with crackpot theories. But if we're talking about it as a viable, this could be real in the books or show thing, that's when I'm like, nah. But if you just want to have fun with it, by all means, theories are fun.
And it's also way extra fun the more crackpot your theory is. If it were to come true,
then you're just
so vindicated.
I was in the 0.5% of people that believed this.
And if it's not true, you're like, no one thought that anyway.
Yeah, it's true. Okay, super chat from JB Lee. This really brightened my day. I love all of you. I think JB is referring to your dancing, by the way. Maybe this whole episode in general, but that as well. Okay, well, with that in mind, we're going to go ahead and do some of our mid-roll stuff. This is maybe not halfway through. This stream could go a long time because we're not covering everything we wanted to cover, because this is the most festive of an episode we've ever had. This is not a bad thing. I'm not complaining at all. This is awesome. This is fun. But our progress getting through material is a little bit slower. So this could be a particularly long stream. Now, so let's do some of our mid-roll stuff. I want to start out of order with what you were saying, with the being right about a theory that's really unlikely to be right. Mm-hmm. Now, that is the whole point of Sir Valentin de Gen's Game of Predictions site that I've been talking about. He is one of our patron supporters, and I checked his site out. I actually made some predictions there. And it's a futures market. Remember, again, it's free. There's no money involved. And the way a futures market works is you buy or sell shares of a theory, in this case. And if the theory is R plus L equals J, you don't get a very good price on it. because everyone believes this, right?
Yeah.
And so if you can't make much money by predicting that that's accurate. But if you predict that Sansa will end up on the Iron Throne, you can get a great price for that. If you predict that Bran is the Night King, you can get a great price for that. Well, actually, you can't get that great of a price of it because somehow that theory is actually popular on the site right now. Probably because not a ton of people are using it yet. But anyway, it's fun. You can go in and put your virtual money where your mouth is and try to make which guesses you think are the most accurate. This thing's going to be running for years. It's going to continue. It'll involve book stuff, I believe, as well. So, again, it's gameofpredictions.org, and check it out for fun. Bill Coupland super chat for Sean. Drink for that dance. He's tipping you for your awesome dancing.
You're buying me a drink? You're instructing me to drink.
This drink is purple, man. What the? What is that?
This is the berry naked protein drink with the Blue Mountain Dew mix in it. Gives me energy to dance.
All right then. Also, I want to give shout outs to some of our other patrons who helped make this episode and others like it possible. It's time for our Northern Champions to get a shout out. That would be Jay Wilson, Winter's King, Sir Stephen, the Hammer of the North, Winter's King, Lord of the First Men, Lady Ardross, Mother of Wolves, Sir Daniel, the Sneaky Russian, Sir Brian the Returned, Knight of the Last House, wielder of the Valyrian Steelblade Red Song, and Sir Kobe of House Stonesmith, whose words are wind, deeds are stone. Also, thanks to our 3 Blood Riders now, we have rounded out our Blood Rider group, and they are all female. How cool is that? We have Koholkoe, Master of the Bow, called Sunpiercer. We have Vorsaki, wielder of a Valyrian Steel Arak with the Dragonbone hilt. And introducing Stefania, first named Kalaki Blood Rider, wielder of the Orvik Key Vorsa, which is Dothraki for Whip of Fire. How cool is that? So you can see the word Vorsa and Vorsaki is flame, and Whip of Fire, Orvik v Corsa. Cool. Our patrons learned Dothraki in order to create their names, or at least some Dothraki. That is really getting into it, which is something I love about this fandom. We take it seriously.
Anyone who does learn Dothraki can sit down and have a conversation with Dwight and Aaron from The Office.
That's right. The Office released its season 9 deleted scenes very recently, and there's a very extended... What's that?
That's not what happened.
What?
I bought The Office Blu-ray very recently.
She bought The Office Blu-ray very recently. It's been out for a little while.
Years.
I thought it wasn't out. I thought it just came out. You just now bought it. Why didn't we have it sooner?
I was waiting for a ring to hit me.
Okay. I was just surprised that we didn't have something Office related right away. We usually just, Anyway, there's an extended scene of Dwight and Aaron talking Dothraki. Aaron even refers to, but if we retire to the Dothraki coast, I won't seem like a tourist. And she refers to the Dothraki Book of Proverbs. Pretty dang funny. Super chat from Jinx Lier for Sean's sick moves. P.S. I bought a disco ball. Yes. Excellent. That is living. Okay. One other thing from our mid-roll before we get going here. Back to the material. We are, again, as I said at the beginning, but a lot of people missed it because people come in and out of this chat. We're going to continue our regular live streams. We're going to have different topics, mostly Game of Thrones related, occasionally non-Game of Thrones stuff. But we're considering going back to rewatch some of the earlier seasons, which we never did cover. And it's fun to rewatch when there's new stuff in there. I'm going to reread too, because stuff about like Night King and stuff about Ice Dragon, there's new references to look for because George is so sneaky, it's so subtle. I mean, the references to the children making the others were in the books. We just didn't have any reason to specifically think it's, to have sort of confirmation to look for that. But once that confirmation quote unquote show confirmation was there, it made a reread just so much more interesting. So there's so much to talk about. Plus, these live streams are just so much more fun. Like, it's changed. The game has changed with the way they work. The technology has changed a bit, and now it's just a part of our routine. We want to keep that going. It's so much fun, and I know you guys feel the same way. We won't have as much new material to talk about, but we'll still have a great time hanging out. And again, as I said, with the rereads, on topic with that, if you want to reread but don't have the time to sit down and reread the books, get them on Audible. The Audible trial is a great way to get involved with the audiobooks because it's no cost. You get 2 free downloads. Go to historyofwesteros.com, take advantage of that trial. You don't have to spend any money if you don't want to. You get to keep those 2 free downloads even if you don't keep the trial. And you can maybe that's the way for you to do your reread rather than sitting down and focusing on it. Get that reread while you're running errands, while you're doing chores, while you're jogging, or whatever you need to do. So, highly recommended.
While you're dancing.
So while you're dancing, that's right. You may prefer music, but hey, if you want to listen to Game of Thrones while you're dancing, then that's your soundtrack. That's your soundtrack. Super chat from the Snow and Winterfell. Got to run, guys. Time to put the boys to sleep and then quality time with wifey. Love the show and my fellow chatters. We'll watch full show tomorrow. See you on Book to Show. Gendry and Arya for the win. Thank you, Snow and Winterfell. We appreciate it very much, and indeed, we will see you on Wednesday. Andrew Duff, Super Chat. How do you think the Night King will be defeated or subdued? Do you foresee any main character deaths for Season 8? Specific predictions about Season 8 in terms of deaths, I think we'll hold off on that from now. That's something we can spend some time thinking about. My first instinct, though, is Cersei or Euron. Like the guys who were sort of still kind of villainous characters, maybe. Some of the good guys, quote-unquote good guys, will die too, but that's harder to guess at. I think the villains dying off seems like an easier prediction. Might not be right, but it's kind of hard to go against that.
Yeah. I would default to people who have already predicted, like Beric.
yeah, for sure. Like Beric, you're right. That's one that I also think he can't possibly survive the whole series. Could be wrong, though. There'll be some surprises. How the Night King will be defeated or subdued. Well, the one theory we've already thrown out there is Arya. She's like, the idea of anyone just standing toe-to-toe to him and fighting him seems kind of crazy. Although, it bears mention that it's the same actor playing Night King that played the stuntman who played Arthur Dane doing two-handed sword fighting. So if they need that actor to go to town, he can do it. Like, he's the most equipped on the entire show for sword fighting.
He's the stunt, or one of the
he's
stunt
one of the actual,
so,
not just good at swords. Like, he's one of the actual show stunt coordinators for the show. Yeah, you're totally right. So possibly, archery, maybe taking him out, obsidian arrows, maybe, but now he's on a dragon, so that's harder. Like, by the way, obsidian arrows probably can't penetrate the dragon's hide, and I don't know that fire can kill that dragon because he's already a dragon, so that might be, they may have a real tough challenge there. But yeah, again, Arya maybe sneaking up on him, Valyrian steel, like her assassination.
It's new for me to even be thinking about this, but my default is the Night King doesn't actually get killed. He withdraws. He's defeated and withdraws back to the north.
It takes another 8,000 year
nap. The threat looms. Yeah.
That could be it,
and Bran has to stand watch as the three-eyed raven.
Oh, yeah. Oof. Eternal vigil.
Yeah.
Another super chat from Lord Bonza. Did the Night King have a plan to get past the wall before Viserion fell in his lap, or is he a green seer and he knew he would get Drogon the whole time? It could be both. I think it would be almost silly to assume he doesn't have at least some kind of green seer powers, because he already has these naturalistic magical abilities that seem to be corrupted versions of what the children can do, like using the dead instead of using live animals for warging. And
in the same way that Beric and Thoros didn't exactly have a plan other than go north. We have this destiny. We have to go north,
Yeah.
It was an incomplete vision, but it still sent them on a mission. That's kind of what I think of the Night King. He knows he's got to go south. He maybe even knows he's got to capture this dragon. Maybe he doesn't know the timing of it or what the dragon's capabilities are, but he's kind of just following this sense of destiny that he has,
Yeah, I agree.
He'll figure out the details of the plan on the way. He has a generic plan, but maybe didn't have the exact method figured out, but now he does.
Maybe that's why they had the chains.
Yeah, right. That's why I think they had exactly why I think
the chains may have been part of climbing the wall or something.
It's also maybe why it happened at the location that it did.
Yeah.
If there's not this frozen lake for the dragon to fall into, maybe he just burns up and he can't resurrect him. But if he falls into the frozen water, then he can resurrect him. And to resurrect him, we got to pull him out with chains. And I think the Night King had all that planned out. So.
I definitely think he had some kind of plan. Maybe they're never going to spell it out what it was. But yeah, like they're clearly intelligent. I mean, you saw wights were running past the party to get to the imprisoned wight to free him. They were trying to stop that from happening. Yeah, like that was intelligence at play. And it wasn't the individual wight making that call. He's like, I'm going to take this upon myself to free my undead brother. No, one of the walkers was guiding them. Yeah.
Yeah, and even if it was, that makes them even more of a threat.
Yeah, that's true. That was his real. Those two were brothers before they died. I was like, that's my brother. You're tearing away. Super chat from Josh Spivak. Thanks, Westeros History, and he's thanking us because Ashea gave him the link to Game of Predictions. Well, we appreciate that. Yeah, gameofpredictions.org. That was the right link, right? GamePredictions.org.
What?
GamePredictions.org. Yeah, I was pretty sure that was the right link.
Sorry, I was watching Sean dance.
Awesome. And Acre Frey says these live streams are definitely more chaotic than the scripted shows, and chaos is a ladder. That's right. We climbed that ladder to 1,000 viewers, live viewers. Also, another super chat from Dornish Dan. Thanks, Dornish Dan. You're kicking butt today with the super chats. The last war against the dead left enough alive to cause the present war. Shouldn't Bran go back in time to see what should have been done then so as to eliminate the problem now? Ooh, yeah. Seeing if he can... I mean, he was able to see the birth of the walkers by looking far back enough, so he should be able to see what came after that.
Yeah. And maybe that's the answer to the question that someone asked earlier is how will they defeat him? Maybe Bran is going to figure out how to defeat him.
Go look for the answers in history. That's a great idea. Maybe Sam will be like, I got this book that says this. Can you verify that?
Yeah.
What a great thing to have. Sam's like, look up if this is real or not.
Sam and Bran working together.
Sam and Bran are the dream team. I want to be with them.
New spin-off idea.
Yeah. Yeah, geez. Serious Sam and Raisin Bran. If Bran starts raising the dead, that's his nickname, Raisin Bran. Hopefully not. If he is the Night King, then that's his real name, Raisin Bran. All right, so we got to back up here to King's Landing. We didn't even come close to covering all of King's Landing. But here's a little tidbit. While we're talking about the Night King and all that, that white, it had blue eyes. Shay's going to pull up this image of the white having blue eyes. I'm giving her these things out of order, so apologize for that, Shay. But
what?
We got out of order here. Can you pull up the image of the white with the blue-eyed white? Yeah, we're out of order now.
No problem.
The white having blue eyes, of course, is not a surprise. Of course, the whites have blue eyes, but consider that if the Night King or another Walker can see through the eyes of the whites. Yeah. The Night King was watching this whole thing happen in the Dragon Pit, seeing all these enemies, seeing all this stuff arrayed before him. That's very interesting. You know, just we don't know what kind of level of intelligence he has, what kind of purpose he has, but we know that he has intelligence, and he may have witnessed all of this.
How awesome would that have been if, as the scene was unfolding, we get a cut to the Night King, and his eyes roll back white like Bran's does, and then we see images from this, what we're seeing in like a blue tinted film, you know what I mean? Yeah. We see Cersei's face reel back as the white closes in on her, and we see maybe the mountain, you know, and the Night King, you know, responded to that.
So I had a dot I was going to connect that an hour had passed in between when I intended to connect these two dots, which was that as Bronn and Jaime were staring at these armies massing and it was intimidating them, we had a parallel to Jon and Tyrion and them arriving by ship, seeing Euron's big fleet arrayed. They're like, this is kind of the same feeling Jaime and Bronn were having, like, that's scary. So that was kind of neat. And they have the conversation about how many people live in King's Landing. Now, they diverged from show book canon on these numbers, but who cares? You know, they do that sort of thing. But they made it larger. King's Landing is about double the size it is in the books. It's about 500,000 people in the books, so 1 million people here. And the North really should have more people in it total than the books, or than the show says, less than 1 million. But again, who cares? That's just...
It's also possible, whatever point the books give those numbers, things might have changed since then. Like maybe some of the population has consolidated itself at King's Landing.
Still, that's a huge doubling.
Yeah, that's true.
Really huge. But it does make sort of some sense because the food has been yanked from all these places. Although being inside the city is not a good place to be when there's starvation. Mm-hmm. The food will be harder to come by there. But I can't help but think of the pun, Night King's Landing, right?
Yeah.
It's like literally he's flying, so it's landing. It makes even more sense. So ahead of all this, Cersei and Jaime have their conversation before the armistice meeting. Now, I think it sort of removed a little of the tension when Cersei went to the mountain and was like, if anything goes wrong, kill Dany first, and then kill Tyrion, and then kill Jon.
Yeah.
You know, or maybe it was Jon, then Tyrion. I think it was Tyrion, then Jon, but whatever. Definitely it was Dany first.
Whatever order you want after that.
And that said to me that she wasn't going to pull something. I mean, it didn't mean she wasn't going to pull something. It meant that our guess of her accepting the armistice in order to backstab later, it made that more likely.
She's not going to pull something right there with everyone all around. She's not going to
especially with the dragon sitting right there.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. What's your plan for that thing? There was a lot of cool talk from multiple people about the historicity of the Dragon Pit, but we'll talk about that on Wednesday. I just, frankly, didn't have time to look it all up. I wanted to be more thorough. And, you know, we always are rushing to get everything ready for this episode, and this episode was 30% longer than the normal episode, so it was 30% more to cover. Kind of a sneaky thing. We talked about how Jon maybe was his only time smiling in recent memory, until he got with Dany. That was reason for smiling. But He smiled at Gendry when Gendry called him short. And that was maybe the only time he smiled since he got to Dragonstone. Sandor almost smiled when talking with Brienne about Arya.
Yeah.
And I thought it was fantastic acting because there's a thing that people tell you. You can fake a smile in the mouth, but you can't fake a smile in the eyes. Unless you're an actor. In which case you've practiced this sort of thing.
Yeah.
His eyes were smiling, but his mouth wasn't. So it was like the opposite. Like, oh man, that takes expertise, because that only could happen in real life if you genuinely have these sort of mixed emotions. And Sandor's like, I don't smile, but thinking of Arya and how badass she's become, and hearing that she's in a good place, made him happy, you know. But he didn't smile, but his eyes did. It was different. It was cool.
One of our followers that we actually met at the con, Avril, has recommended this show to me that. Sandor, I can't remember the actor's name or the name of the show. I probably shouldn't have brought this up since I'm so unprepared. But I do want to see it. I do want to see him. It's more of a drama, you know what I mean, or maybe a comedy drama. And I am curious to see, you know, him perform in a role outside of this stoic monster of a warrior. You know.
What?
Avril?
No, who is the warrior?
Sandor.
Yeah.
And okay, so. What do we have here? Now, we also have Tyrion and Bronn talking, which was cool. You know, and I cheered out loud when he brought up his old line about paying him double. It didn't go as far as I wanted it to. It wasn't like, because Bronn didn't answer the question on what the double was, but it leads us that way. You know, you can definitely feel the chance of Bronn flipping sides is getting bigger and bigger, especially with Jaime leaving King's Landing now. Like, that's the guy who promised me my lordship.
Yeah.
Dang it. Well, I'm not going to get this from Cersei.
I didn't think about it until you just now said that. I feel like it's almost guaranteed Bronn is going to
Yeah.
be part of the battle in the north. He's going to...
Or at least he's just going to run off somewhere else.
yeah.
He doesn't want any part of dragons. He probably doesn't want any part of the dead either. But we'll see. Maybe even the sellswords will start to fight for humanity.
I guess he is more likely to have the mentality of that Ironborn guy that Theon
just
bumped heads with.
Yeah, with
I'm just going to go to some island and
just
get away from all
and
this.
Just get out of here. Yeah. What was that guy's name? We looked it up.
Harry.
Herrig. Yeah, that Ironborn who fought Theon has a name, Herrig. So yeah, Herrig has the same idea that Euron had, although Euron was lying. Still, at least one Ironborn had that idea for real. So we also got Podrick and Tyrion, which was cool because Podrick really has, you know, despite Tyrion running off on Podrick still really, you know, has strong positive feelings for Tyrion. Tyrion's the one who kind of brought him into what he is today, like kind of made him what he is.
Gave him a chance.
Gave him a chance. Good. That's a great way to put it. Yeah. So that was cool. And then Podrick and Bronn, that they kind of. This was a kind of an unusual. I thought it was kind of a clever way to add tension to the scene and something they kind of had to do. Okay, remember, folks, Lena Headey and Jerome. I forget his last name. Flynn cannot be together in real life because they had a real life relationship that ended badly, and apparently they've shouted at each other like when they're in the same room together.
Disruptive to filming when they're in the same room, so they just don't film any scenes with them in the same shot.
They become Brandon Stark. You know, like Ned's brother, the hothead, when they're near each other, like, come out and die. You know, so this was maybe a clever way to add some tension to the scene, because when they left, it was like, wait, what's going on here?
Yeah,
this is suspicious.
That was very suspicious. Ominous, even.
Yeah, it was a little ominous. We were like, wait a minute, what's going on here? But it was really just, it was probably just this. It was probably just, well, they need to get Jerome out of there. Yeah. And so I thought it was kind of clever because on one hand, I know someone Snow and Winterfell says, get Lena and Jerome need to just grow up already and be able to coexist. But the showrunners can't force them to, you know, they can't be threatening to fire them. They can't Lena Headey has too much clout at this point. You know, maybe they could kill Bronn off, but
they can't recast those characters.
Yeah.
You know?
So what are they going to do? Like, you got to sympathize for them. They're being unreasonable. What are you going to do about it?
It does make you wonder what other scenes we might have gotten.
Yeah.
That we didn't because of that conflict.
And it makes Cersei telling Jaime to punish Bronn a little funnier too. Like, you got to punish him. Like, wait a minute, where is this coming from?
That wasn't in the script. What?
So it was kind of like I thought it was kind of clever that they had to write that in as a way to add tension when in fact it was just a meta thing that they had to deal with.
2 for 1.
So on one hand, it's silly that they have to deal with that, but I like how they dealt with it, given that they were forced to. Super chat from Alan Petty Jr. Night King and White Walkers had 3 ice spears with them specifically for killing a dragon. It was a planned trap. Yeah, I mean, and they've had those spears since season 1 or season 2. They've been seen with these ice spears, but they were But apparently these spears have been usable for this purpose for a long time. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, we're with you on the trap theory being very strong. Like I can't say yes, it was definitely a trap, but I'm pro that theory. Marcus Tarley super chat. Hey Marcus from Danny and the Targs. Valar Don Chris. Dan Chris. Dan Chris. That's hard to say. Thanks for almost killing me on my drive home, Sean. Well, you've killed it on many of our drive homes with your music, so
tonight a DJ will save your life.
Super chat from Chris Boomer. Touching on the idea of Bran looking back through history, do you think he would see Azor Ahai? He might. He may very well. That's a good thing to go look for, Bran. Sam, tell Bran to go look for that. Yeah, I mean, the possibilities for what Bran could see in history are just so vast that it's almost like, well, what can the show give us? You know, they've got to dial that in to narrow those possibilities down and really get a lot of bang for their buck. If they're going to show us some visions, some flashbacks, they got to make sure that those scenes pack a punch. Showing us the original Azor Ahai may be a bit much, but man, that would be cool. Got to think about that. I'm going to marinate on that idea for a while. Think about that some more.
It's one of those things that'd be hard to present. There's not enough context. They only have so much time. I think it'd be a difficult thing to squeeze in there. But
super chat from Rebecca, Lady of Waves. That would be. Why didn't Cersei kill Tyrion? Was it love or strategy? I think it was strategy, because if she kills Tyrion, she gives up the game that she's trying to play nice and then backstab everyone later. If she kills Tyrion, then She's just made an act of, that's an act of war, killing the hand of the queen.
Also makes her a kinslayer, and also there may be some heart left in her. You know, Tyrion called her bluff. You know,
I think mostly it was just strategy.
Yeah,
it gives up her whole plan if she attacks Tyrion.
I agree mostly, and by mostly not 51%, 99%, but I give Cersei 1% love in her heart for Tyrion.
And Rebea also says 200,000 views. Sean gets dancing with a cat.
200,000, man, 1,200.
Yeah, well, she's saying views, not just live watchers. I think.
Oh, views.
Viewers. Well, if she means 200K viewers, yeah, that's too many. Yeah, we'll set that bar lower. So we talked earlier about the actors just being kind of unleashed to do their thing in this scene. Just gave them a lot of leeway to do their acting. And Brienne and Jaime and Cersei shared looks there as they were walking past each other, which was very telling. Cersei and Tyrion shared bigger looks. In the behind the scenes, Peter Dinklage says, the look that Lena gives me when I'm walking by, it flattened me. He was like, yeah, I know we're all acting here, but man, it just... He was legitimately intimidated by her gaze of pain there. So, well played, actors and actresses.
The look that...
What's that?
She meant 2K.
2K.
Oh, 2K. Okay, that's much more reasonable.
The look that Euron gave Theon was pretty good too. It was sort of a scoff, you know, like, wow, this guy, you know.
Yeah, Theon was like giving him the stare, and Euron's like, you're beneath me. Yeah. He didn't care.
A lot was said. I really appreciate those looks. I think that between the directing, editing, acting, those are some of the best for how understated and how quick that all happened. They're some of the best moments of the show.
Yeah, it was great. Then there was Sandor and Gregor, you know, and that's brought up, like, Tyrion says, some Clegane's always there to, help
that was
back
good.
up this plan or whatever. And so this did two things. It, one, didn't give us Clegane Bowl, but it, two, basically told us that we would get it. It was like, I'm coming. We didn't say I'm coming for you. He said, you've always known who's coming for you. And there's some room for it being someone else, but come on, it's him.
I stole this from another one of our viewers, Berneris. The mountain that bides. They're being patient with the Clegane Bowl. The mountain that bides.
They just wanted to have Clegane Bowl. Dragon Pit was just not a large enough venue. They're holding out for a larger venue for the place. Yeah, they need
Man, the venue is big enough they needed more of an audience. They're not going to have this for 17 people. They want 17,000 people.
Yeah, they need everyone watching. They need the whole Army of the Dead arrayed and watching,
So this is a little out of place, but a couple things I'm going to throw in here since we're already out of order and I'm worried about forgetting it later on. There's a look that a couple looks that Arya gave, one of which was to Sansa, where she kind of raises her eyebrow. I can't even do it, but I can't help but wonder how much is that, like, what she chose to do as an actress or whether she got that instruction. Either way, I thought it was really good, and I like to give credit for the actors doing or trying different things. That the director may give some instruction or may decide on one or the other, but I'm sure they have absorbed these characters into themselves and emote as they think the characters would,
I've always kind of perceived acting school as involving a lot like one of the courses when you're doing your, filling out your syllabus for your acting school, which class you can take, and you're like, yeah, I need to take eyebrowing 101 or like, I'm starting at the advanced eyebrow class. I'm a natural.
I took drama in high school.
Yeah. So,
my other thought, by the way, and this one is a little more shaky of a theory, but it's something that has got in my mind this episode, is I wonder what the chances are that the Mountain is actually the one that kills Cersei. I feel like the Mountain keeps being... They made him to be such this terrible villain, right?
Yeah.
And it's much more hard to redeem him. He's much closer to Joffrey and Ramsay as being like a one-sided evil bad guy. But Jaime started off in a similar situation. He was painted as this bad guy, supporting this bad guy, supposed to protect this bad guy, and ends up killing him. How many times is Cersei going to ask the Mountain to do something that the Mountain just does before one day he's like, not anymore. Not doing it this time.
I am giving you the most skeptical side eye of all time. This is I don't think there's any chance of this. He's not even there's no indication he even really has cares or instincts or ethos at all.
I agree. I agree it's a complete stretch, but I gotta what's that site? I gotta make my long-term bet.
That would be you'll get great odds on that one, I'll tell you. And also even when he was fully conscious, he was just he's just evil. I really don't see it. Anyway, you got your idea out there. Let's move on. Dany enters late. We kind of talked about that's why she's not in these shots. She's going to make her late entrance. That was a pretty easy prediction. It turned out to be true. And she also
totally stole Cersei's thunder.
Yeah, and from behind the episode, Lena Headey was like, yeah, and man, did that piss Cersei off so much. Not only does it piss her off that she made them wait, because she's the power player, she doesn't want someone else making a power play on her, but she sees the dragon, and it's intimidating, and then she sees Dany, who's really hot, and she's like, this just really pisses her off so much. All these factors, like her being late, her being hot, her having a dragon, she's like... Yeah. She just hates her so much.
And I watched the episode 3 times now, and every time Cersei's like, we've been waiting some time. It cracks me up every time.
Yeah, and she's just like, I apologize for that.
Yeah, my apologies.
And then it makes her more mad. That's all she has to say is that I apologize. Like, she's just nonchalant. Yeah, so Euron's interruption when Theon stands up was part of the setup. He had to act... I think that was part of like acting incorrigible. Maybe he just did this on his own, but I think it was maybe part of the setup for him pretending to leave. Because he was acting incorrigible to like maybe set the stage for there being a small rift between them. And then Cersei kind of tells him to sit down. And then this is part of the plan for him, like, oh, I'm leaving because I'm terrified. And I think that sold it, if not to us, also to the characters.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people... maybe didn't catch. If you go back and look at it, it's like, oh man, of course he's not afraid. This is Euron we're talking about. Come on. He's not just going to run back to the Iron Islands just because of this. Come on. That's Euron. But I guess Tyrion and Theon and Jon didn't sniff, especially Jon. Jon doesn't sniff these kind of things out. But maybe Davos or Tyrion, someone maybe should have figured this out, or at least maybe they will later. Tyrion has this comment about the last 50 years, and Nicole White, one of our patrons, wants us to explain that. What he means, they're all arguing about whose past transgressions are larger. Like, your father did this, about Dany, and Dany can say, well, your father did this, and blah, blah, blah. Your father killed ordered the death of my nephews, or my nephew and niece, and all that. So and that's what Tyrion's saying, look, the last 50 years, we've both done all these awful things to each other. We're not going to get anywhere if we dwell on the past, because we were all guilty here. I think that's what he was saying. He's like, we have to worry about the future, or else there won't be a future.
Yeah, you could go on a lot with this if you consider that there was the rebellion in the first place. Like that.
Yeah.
Dany can make an argument that I'm not a usurper. I'm the rightful one to be on the throne in the first place. And Tyrion can see them going down this argument, and it's not going to get them anywhere. It's like, look, let's worry about the here and now, not the past 50 years.
Yeah. We have a super chat from Meredith Glassberg that I guess we missed this one from a little while ago.
I put it in the document after the section so that we didn't get distracted from the section again.
Okay. Oh, okay, cool. That's a good idea. Thanks, Shea. We're keeping this thing flowing more smoothly. yes, we'll get to any pending super chats in a moment. Yeah, so in addition to, let's look at this real quick. Also predicted the white fascinated Qyburn. Also an easy prediction that played out. Glad they did that. And in fact, the actor Anton Lesser, he was also in behind the episode talking about he was geeking out. He was like, "Oh, my character was like, oh, of course he's going to be interested in this." It's like he was fascinated. He was like he recognized the threat, but his scientific mind was just too like, "Oh my goodness, this is so interesting," you know.
I imagine after the fact, Jamie might have had words with Qyburn. Like, "How did you save that hand, man? Why'd you
why'd you burn that? You should let me keep that."
Could have burned the other hand.
So the reaction to the white was pretty big. Oh, here we go.
We had requests for this.
Was the reaction to the white as big as the reaction to the cat in a box?
This cat is
this
is a white cat, by the way, because he does have blue eyes. You can see that he has been possessed by Night Cat. We'll just leave him here for as long as we can. He'll just sit here with us for as long as we can keep him. So Cersei reacting very viscerally to the undead, which, I mean, it came right at her. And other people, Jamie, everyone is reacting. They're like, "Oh my goodness." Now this is the part that to me, this is how it kind of boils down. I've been saying that, you know, the plan to go capture a white maybe was weird, but I didn't think it was as bad as a lot of other people did. The part I thought was bad is the part that's still bad, which is them trusting Cersei. Yeah. And that's clearly just not happening. We were all right to say don't trust Cersei. But it really kind of proves the point that you have to see it to believe it. And you have to see it to feel the effect, to be truly terrified. It worked on Jaime. It worked on Cersei, even though it didn't change her calculus. She was legitimately terrified, but she still, after thinking about it, was still like, yep, but still, this doesn't change anything. You know, I'm still looking out for number one here, and number one is me. And
me and her baby.
Yeah. And it really affected a lot of people. And I wonder if it's going to affect Bronn. You know, like Bronn saw the dragon. He was like, nope. Now he sees this. Maybe, he didn't actually see this because he left with Podrick. Yeah. But, he'll hear the rumors.
Double nope? Or is he like, okay, yes, you know, like...
And it had a huge impact on Brienne. I mean, Brienne was like F loyalty to Jaime afterwards. Yeah. Like Brienne, of all people, who like was going to go down with the Stannis ship even after he was dead. I mean, the Renly ship, even long after, like, just all that. You know, like she's as loyal as they get. And she's like, this doesn't matter anymore. So it did have the intended effect on like just spooking people into being like, wow, yes, let's prepare for the army of the dead when you hear about it on paper. But when you see it, it's like, all right, this touches you on an emotional level, and it kind of spurs people to action. So I thought it was kind of neat how that played out. And
by the way, real quick, I want to point out, I appreciate that when Dany was first approaching on the dragon, and they're like waiting for her, and you hear the screech in the background. Jaime perks up, stands up. He's like alert to this danger. He's heard that before.
He's heard that sound before.
Everyone else is maybe confused and looking around, but he was like ready to run or fight or whatever. Yeah.
And I loved watching Drogon crawl along the rock there. He's so intimidating. They make that dragon look just very terrifying. Okay, so let's explain something here. Why did Cersei want that pledge from Jon? It's actually very straightforward if you break it all down. And this is why she made a distinction. She's like, well, this is why there's nothing else to speak to. This is why she walked away, and this is why it was fake. She walked away even knowing she was going to agree to it. She knew that they would come back around to try to encourage them again, or she knew that she would accept it later. She knows that Jon won't lie. She read that situation perfectly. She's like, if Jon makes this pledge, he's going to keep it. So she wanted him to pledge not to attack her so that she could attack Dany, and Jon would like, well, I gotta obey my oath here. I promise not to attack her. That was all part of her plan to backstab them after agreeing to the armistice. That actually fits perfectly with what she was doing. Again, Cersei gets Jon to agree to a pledge that Jon, being a man of honor, will not break, even if she breaks her word.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
And, I mean, if she attacked him, he would be like, okay, we're got to fight back. But, of course, that was ruined by Jon having already bent the knee to Dany. So he can't make the pledge. But Cersei was right that he would have. You know, that would have worked. So now Tyrion and Cersei. Now, one thing that's kind of funny about this Tyrion and Cersei thing is that we had this moment about Dany and Tyrion talking about heroic things, and this was fairly heroic, even though I just spelled out that Cersei would never have killed Tyrion. Never. She wanted this to happen. She wanted more negotiation to happen. She just wanted to play. She just wanted to negotiate for more, basically. This was kind of like him going beyond the wall. Like, this was his going beyond the wall moment, going into extreme danger. You know, he didn't know that Cersei, this was all part of Cersei's plan. But
Right.
all along, it even comes complete with undead. With Gregor.
Yeah.
Being there. And Gregor nearly killing him. He drinks his wine. He's like, oh, phew, I got through that, you know. But this is where there's another sort of subtle behind-the-scenes play going on here. Cersei wanted Tyrion to figure out that she was pregnant without saying it. This was revealed in the behind the episode. It was a bluff that she was making to get Tyrion to read it, but it was actually a multi-level bluff, to use a poker term. Her real bluff was that she was not going to be part of the armistice. That was her real bluff.
Yeah.
She did the kind of belly thing on purpose to get. Now that's not my theory. I didn't catch this. This was what they said from behind the episode. So this is Tyrion thinks he's figured something out and has kind of caught her, but she wanted him to figure that out. So that's, again, it bears mention. Book Cersei doesn't have this level of cunning, and that throws people off, and that gets people to forget that show Cersei is far more capable. Now we get to Jaime and Cersei splitting apart. And this is, some people wonder why this was the thing that finally pushed him away from her. There's a lot of it here. One, he legitimately thinks that the White had a legitimate effect on him. He really, really wants to fight for the living. And so he was legitimately surprised that that wasn't the plan with Cersei. He's like, what? You know, you're planning on backstabbing? What's up with that? And she's like, "You're always thought you were the stupidest Lannister or whatever, you know." And so that was part of it too. Not only that Jaime is very much against this plan of backstabbing the realm in order to, you know, when they're all trying to band together, but he legitimately was upset that she didn't include him in the plan. You know, she's like, this also shows that they're both not trusting each other as much. Like, she argues against him for talking to Bronn and Tyrion behind her back, and he's, you know, not included in this, you know, plan of betrayal here. So
it wasn't that this is the moment. This is the last straw. It's a culmination of things that have been going on forever. And finally, this is it.
It could have happened in different order, you know, and then people are saying, bye, Xerxes. Yes, Xerxes has gone away. Our kitty who got tired of being on camera there, but he'll probably be back. He was tired. He wanted to nap some more. Now, one thing to get hype about here was I've been really excited about the possibility of the Golden Company. Now that we know Euron is going to pick them up, there's almost nothing that's going to stop that from happening now. Like, we're going to see the Golden Company next season. I'm like 98% on that, and I think y'all probably agree roughly with that percentage. And Cersei, they doubled the size of the Gold Company, by the way. Not just from the book doubling it, but they said before that it was 10,000 mercenaries in the show. And now it's 20,000.
That's right, now it's 20,000.
So they just kind of, like when Stannis brought, but again, I don't care. They've got bigger. So what?
Yeah. They got more money to work with.
Yeah, so what? You know, that's not a big deal. But more importantly, she mentions elephants, which is awesome, because that means we might get elephants next season. And we've already sort of seen... we saw woolly mammoths already, right?
Yeah.
And we have already seen Mastodon. Ashaya's going to pull up this image here,
That's right.
And I'm talking about the band Mastodon. The members of the band Mastodon were undead wildlings in the Hardhome episode, and you can see this image she's pulling up. That is Brent Hines right there in the middle. If you know Brent Hines, he is unmistakable right there.
Those guys are from Atlanta too, by the way.
Yes, they have an extra connection to. I've seen all of them at shows. They're all just, you know, concert rats. They go to all the metal shows, and I see them there.
And they're freaking awesome. I mean, if you're into metal, I mean, they are.
I love Mastodon. I've seen them 15 times probably.
I want to call them revolutionary. Might not be quite the word, but man, they are on another level for most metal bands.
I love Mastodon. It's true. So that's really huge. Obviously, the something to look forward to. The Golden Company and their elephants and this army. Hopefully, we get the golden skulls and on their motto. I'm really hyped for that possibility.
Hopefully we get a couple new characters. Hopefully they have, you know, some captains that are some interesting characters.
I see theories floating around that maybe Dario will be their captain. That would be a little random for him to become the captain of the Golden Company for his large army. I mean, they could explain it, but people think that it could create a love triangle, but it wouldn't. She rejected him. Dany rejected him. There's no love triangle, you know? Yeah. I just don't, I don't know. Maybe maybe it could be. That would be a reason for her to, you know, well, she finds out that Jon is related, so she can't marry him. So maybe getting Dario would mean getting the Golden Company on her side. So that would be like a political reason to go get with Dario to get the Golden Company on her side.
It seems like a lot for Dario to abandon the responsibility that she gave him.
And
become the leader of the Golden Company.
And
Dany to accept him after having abandoned the responsibility she gave him. And to leave Jon to do it. Like, that's a bit of a stretch.
And also, it would mean that the Golden Company would have to go along with Dario switching sides. Like, wait, we're motivated by money. Why are we switching sides? Now there's connection in the books. There's Golden Company have connections to the Targaryens that I'm not going to get into here. So that could come into play.
They might also change their mind if they see a freaking flying ice dragon and zombies or whatever.
Absolutely. Just like other people changed their mind when they were actually presented with the problem. They're like, okay, that changes everything.
But some people just want to go to an island and avoid all this. The Golden Company might be also like...
They might just say, well, the thing is, once they're there, if they need Euron to bring them over, they can't just leave.
Yeah, if Euron says, no, you got to stay.
Yeah, Euron's like, I'm not taking you back. Screw that. I got other things to do. So... You had there was one oh never mind oh yeah, and we saw Jaime leaving. This is huge, right? I guess it didn't come down to Cox for him, did it? He didn't stay with his family. He didn't stay for gold. He's going to fight for humanity. Yeah. So that's kind of cool that it came down to a larger purpose.
Maybe he just wants to be with Brienne.
Yeah, he was reminded. He's like, man, she wouldn't make me do this. And no one would talk about incest if I got her pregnant, Anyway.
Yeah, like he already doesn't want to have to go up against these dragons. And now he sees the real threat of these zombies. Yeah. And he sees it, even in the face of all this, Cersei still won't listen to reason, at least his reason,
Yeah.
Now, there is another factor that wasn't there before, that he's still leaving despite that he has a child on the way. So, maybe reasons that we're building got knocked down a notch when he finds out Cersei's pregnant, but they get knocked back up a notch when he sees this zombie. So
that's true. Now, this scene had an extra layer to it. It wasn't just, the show often does a good job of doing multiple things in one scene. This is a good example. Not only is Jaime leaving, but snow on King's Landing. That's a huge part of that. Shay's pulling this image up. Yep. And this is a shot of snow in the dragon pit. There's also, of course, we also see shots of just snow falling all over King's Landing itself. And on his glove is the first time we see it. So that's huge, right? This is yet another reason why I thought of Night King's Landing. Yeah. And but as we brought up earlier, Cersei can't exactly count on keeping a secret that she plans to betray the Dan and Johnny. Jon and Dany. Whoops.
From now on. So, yeah.
The
vice presidents.
It's really interesting how much Jaime will tell other people about this, or whether they'll be like, yeah, we know. Yeah, we knew she was going to do that. But they would know as soon as the armies don't come north anyway. They would figure that out pretty quickly. So, I guess they're just going to learn a little bit sooner. And, yeah, so you noticed this line about Jon saying...
Yeah, not only did Jon say that the undead general won't negotiate, because I was really hoping that we would see that he has motivations, that he might have some plan or some desire that he would come to Jon or some other character with. We would hear him speak. Or maybe even it happens through a vision with Bran. But not only does Jon say that it won't, but I read an article by Kim Renfro where she quoted D&D as saying that they don't have any intentions of making them speak. That they think that it would take away from his mystery and his menacing nature, that he's death. He's just death. And death doesn't need to speak. So,
okay. Yeah.
Now, still, maybe they'll change their mind and reevaluate. We'll see.
That's not enough to make you give up on it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get to some of these super chats that have been building up while we were getting our way through King's Landing there. First of all, Meredith Glassberg. Now Bran is someone there to help him sift through his memories. And Samuel, yeah, that's awesome. They're such a great combo. Didn't see that coming. Should have, probably, because it fits so well.
You know who else could really help there? Gilly.
Yeah, Gilly was on Zappa. Like, can you check to make sure it was actually 1,782 or 15,782 steps in the Great Sept? Can you sit there and count them? And yeah, so that's really cool. Related question, or related super chat from Daniel Hickey. Sam picks Bran's brains to write A Song of Ice and Fire. Yeah, because we talked about that when, like, after the fact, maybe Sam is the one who's getting to write a book because of that scene, that scene with the Maester where he's like, the war is following the death of King Robert. And he's like, that title,
I like this a little extra given what I was talking about at the very beginning of the story, is how is this story even being told?
Yeah.
Right? There's probably going to be some things that we as viewers watching are like, that doesn't make sense. Well, maybe that's not reality. That's just the story that Sam wrote, and he didn't know all the details. So,
Emma Smith super chat. Will Theon's rescue of Yara reveal that Euron isn't hiding on the Iron Islands like he said, thereby uncovering the Golden Company plot accidentally? Well, in fact, we were kind of going there next. So stay tuned just another minute here, Emma, and we'll get to that. But short answer, yes. Although Jaime is, like that part of the plot can be real. Jaime's already going to reveal, or maybe could reveal, that Cersei is planning the backstabbery, which might implicate Euron. But they might still think that Euron is on the Iron Islands. But they might, if they realize that Cersei was planning to betray them the whole time, they may figure out that Euron was in on it. But this would confirm it.
And it may come sooner than they realize, too. If
Yes.
Euron immediately left to go get the army and come back, rather than something he maybe will do eventually, because that's what Jaime said, Cersei said, they might not trust Jaime.
They might not.
That's another thing to keep in mind. They just might not trust Jaime at first. So.
And what's funny about that is Theon thinks he's going and sailing towards his uncle. He's like, oh boy, I'm going to do this brave thing. He's going to get there and be like, huh, well, that's lucky. Where's my uncle? I mean, I'm glad he's not here, but how did I get so lucky?
Yeah.
He's like, oh, your uncle's in Essos. Say what? So that's a pretty big deal. Okay. Where are we now? Yeah, so that was a cool scene. Theon and Jon, it had this feel to it of, there was another thing where there's a lot going on, even though it's just this conversation, but there's a lot of things happening. First of all, we have Jon with his forgiveness, and Jon's forgiveness is important because it's consistent with his theme of forgiving people. He forgave Jorah, he forgave the Umbers and Karstark kids, and
he forgave all the...
No, yeah. Okay, he didn't forgive people who are working against the Great War. Anyone who's helping him fight the Great War, he's cool with. But if you're trying to kill him, who's fighting the Great War, you're not cool. So
Yeah.
Ollie and Alistair Thorne, you're the exception. You get hanged. Everyone else is an ally, a potential ally.
If you actually kill Jon, he'll seek revenge on you.
Yeah. So a major theme of this scene is that Jon was saying that Theon is a Stark, which we can represent with this hat. And,
Well, how do you reconcile being a Stark and also being a Greyjoy?
well, you just,
Oh, you're just both.
yeah, you just do both here at the same time. I'm sure this looks really awesome right now. I'm sure my head looks as cool as it's ever looked. But
Turn your head to the side. It looked to me the white part in the back.
so you see that a Stark and a Greyjoy is kind of an unnatural combination, as you can see by my head. I mean, a wolf kraken is kind of strange, right? A wolf with a bunch of tentacles is kind of
wolfkin.
scary. It can grab its prey and then chew it up, yeah. And this is cool because he's telling Theon things that he could be telling himself in the mirror later. He's like, Ned Stark is a part of you, even though he's not your father. It was such a setup. Like, oh, we were already like so sure there was going to be this R plus LJ reveal this episode, and they were like, now I'm even more sure. I was already 100% sure. Now I'm 110% sure because that was such a setup for that scene. But again, it accomplished multiple things at once. It got Theon... It was really good for Theon. It gave him motivation. It kind of settled some things in his mind. And Jon's semi-forgiveness, because he said, I can't forgive you for everything. But the things I can forgive you, I do. And it really, that meant a lot to Theon.
I think it's, I brought this up a couple times this season, the idea that sometimes something that's in someone, some frustration or anger or whatever it is, that when they have the opportunity to express it,
yeah,
they're relieved of it.
Yes.
And it doesn't necessarily totally go away, but a portion of it is off their shoulders. It's a burden off their shoulder. And I think that happened for both Jon and Theon here. Theon got to express his regret to Jon, and Jon got to express his frustration with Theon. And I think it's much easier for them to move forward from this point. Like Jon was just barely not knocking Theon out cold the first time he saw him, And I think now they are where they can accept each other, work together, or whatever,
Definitely. I didn't hear any of that because I was playing with my hat, but I'm sure you made a good point. So that was awesome. I like that scene, especially more upon reflection. Lady Ardras points out that it was very ironic for Jon to be so very Ned-like in an episode where he is finally revealed to not be Ned's son, which we all knew, but...
I remember the other thing I was going to say about that moment there is it sets up the idea that even if Jon discovers some different technical biological parentage, that he's still going to consider himself Ned Stark's son.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, he will.
He was still raised by Ned. That's still who he is.
Nature versus nurture.
And it also
a win for nurture.
It will also allow for him to keep the name Jon. Because I think it will be weird and unlikely for the show to start calling him Aegon.
No, he's not
I think
changing his
he's going to
name.
be Jon. Maybe he'll start being Jon Targaryen.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Maybe.
But I can imagine he sticks to being Jon Snow.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you there. There is like 0% chance in my mind, in my personal opinion mind, that he changes his name to Aegon. Yeah, I agree. He's Jon.
Tyrion told him to accept who he was, and he has.
Yeah.
And he is. And some technical detail won't change that.
Yeah. Also, Lady Ardra says his honesty with Cersei, meaning in the dragon pit, when he just refuses to admit what's really going on, even though it ruins everything. Just like Ned confronted Cersei about her children, like, you need to flee because Robert's going to come kill you. He's like, she's like, what about my wrath?
Yeah.
What about my mercy, Ned Stark? Should have listened there, Ned. But see, Jon can come back from the dead, so you can get away with that sort of thing when you are you have multiple lives or whatever. Ned should have known better because he doesn't have 2 lives or 3 lives or whatever. So let's talk a little more about the Theon Yara thing. The guy, again, we pointed out this dude that he fought with was named Brendan Cowell. And a lot of people kind of shook their heads at this scene. And, I don't know. In one hand, it's kind of easy to overlook because it's such a small thing. Theon going to rescue his sister seems really small fries compared to everything else that's happening on. So it's kind of easy to overlook some of this stuff. But again, as our super chatter mentioned, it ties into the main plot. If he goes to the Iron Islands and sees that Euron's not there, that's pretty big. That's a pretty big tie-in. And also, he played out both sides of his heritage there in that scene. He had to be a Stark to go rescue his sister, to do the, quote, right thing. But to get those men to follow him, he had to be a Greyjoy. He had to be tough and fight and rise again harder and stronger after being beaten down and, smiling when he's being smashed in the crotch was pretty funny.
It energizes him, apparently.
Yeah.
Removes the effects of concussions.
It makes him matter. It's like Hulk Hogan being hit with a chair. It just makes him stronger.
That's right.
He's entering a state of Hulkamania. Whoa, I lost a hat. Oh, see, the Greyjoy. We know which is stronger here. This is way too hot to be wearing, so this is going to have to come off.
Theon's got his Theonomaniacs following him now.
Super chat from Danny Jeter. Varys was useless this season. Tyrion was blamed a lot. Yeah. We were doing our crackpot theories about Varys turning tail, and then we backed off on those after that scene with Varys and Tyrion drinking wine together because Varys seemed legitimately like, I want to make this work. Like that didn't seem fake at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, it did kind of end up with Varys doing very little, and that was part of why we were worried about him in the beginning of the season. Like, well, what does he have to do? So either he's going to die or turn on Dany because Tyrion's doing all the the stuff here. So, but apparently no. There's still a role for him. Melisandre said he's going to die, next season. So that sucks because apparently Melisandre might be wrong. She's wrong sometimes, but she's probably right about that one.
I'd like to think that Varys dies trying to do the right thing. He's a martyr in the end. He's a good guy in the end. And
what it could mean is that because he was useless this season, it could mean that they still have something in mind for him and he will become unuseless later.
Right. Kind of like Royce. They kept him around even though he's in the background. They made sure we knew he's still there. They make sure we know Varys is still there, so he's got a plan.
Still a few things to do, yeah, definitely.
A role to play.
All right, so let's move on. Let's talk about Winterfell. We can move on to Winterfell. Sansa and Littlefinger have their worst case scenario conversation, which was kind of interesting. Is yet another thing that he taught Sansa too well because she used it against him. And thinking through his worst case scenario is far worse than thinking through Arya's. Well, I guess not. Maybe not exactly, because the worst case scenario for Arya in her mind was Arya killing her and becoming Lady Winterfell. It's not much. It doesn't get much worse than that. But it does get worse than that.
They're so unlikely too,
yes.
right?
Yeah, but it does. Littlefinger is worse. Even killing her, if he kills, if someone dies and splits the Starks apart, maybe to Sansa it doesn't make a difference if she's dead, but really objectively she could look at that as worse. Like, I care about my family. I don't want them. I care what happens after I'm dead.
Yeah.
So, interestingly though, Littlefinger did predict Dany and Jon hooking up, which was completely accurate. And that feeds along the line of like Sansa's last message to him. It's like, you taught me well. I won't forget the things you taught me. And this is
Yeah.
one of the things that, like, his way of thinking did teach her a lot. It's just his conclusions are where they differ. Like, yes, it's important to think these things through. It's important to consider the worst, but also, I have much different goals. Sansa has much different goals. She's not just after herself. She has much different ambitions than Littlefinger does.
When Littlefinger is often doing the worst thing, he's going to be more suspicious of other people doing the worst thing.
Yeah.
Sansa isn't someone who's always doing the worst thing, so it's not what she defaults to think about.
Yeah.
Littlefinger gets her to think in that way, and then she does, and she realizes that he's the bad guy,
Yeah.
So
It's a thing in real life, right? Where we've all run into people that are very distrusting. Like, they don't a lot of things they don't trust. And I don't mean like skeptical. I'm talking about distrusting. Like, there's a difference between skeptical and distrusting. I mean, they're constantly questioning motives. They're constantly questioning people's integrity and honesty, generally because they either experience a lot of dishonesty in their early life or because they themselves are dishonest people. So it's like, this is their worldview. Like, Cersei is thinking that they're all going to betray her because that's what she would do. Right?
Yeah.
And this is that same kind of thing. Littlefinger is of that mind that people are all like that. But Sansa's his weakness because he has real feelings for her. He had real feelings for Cat. As off base as they were, as unrealistic as they were real. Right? That's something you pointed out many times, that his motivation's this, his motivation's that, but his feelings for Sansa are real. Yeah.
And as evil, weird, corrupt, creepy, whatever he also is intelligent and experienced and has lessons to teach, And also, you can learn good lessons from bad people. Don't be like that person.
Yeah.
That's how to not be,
But, and ultimately, his feelings are what prevented him from seeing the quote unquote obvious, seeing the thing that was going to bite him in the butt.
Yeah.
Was,
he couldn't say anything without it being turned around on him. He had dug himself so deep into a hole with his actions there around Sansa and Winterfell that everything he said, every argument he tried to make, Sansa immediately had the answer for it,
Yeah.
And often he's the one that immediately has the answer when he's, going at it with Varys or Cersei or Tyrion, he's like ready with the next line.
Yeah.
Sansa was the one. He did teach her well. She was ready. She knew what he would say, and she knew how she would respond to it, and he had no outs.
So, Sansa, Bran, Arya, and their kind of surprise for Littlefinger. To me, that was the big giveaway. I mean, we already kind of suspected, because we talked through all the possibilities as much as we can. We kind of suspected that Arya and Sansa would work it out, especially because the trailer line about the wolves, the pack survives, that sort of stuff. But when she says, "Bring Arya to me," when she's to the guard, I was like, okay, this is interesting. But when Bran was sitting there with her, I was like, she's not going to execute Arya with Bran sitting right there.
Yeah.
That was the first giveaway. Second of all, she says, well, you're accused of blankety blank and murder. I'm like, what murder is Arya accused of? I mean, yeah, we know she's killed people, but what murder
would Sansa be accusing her of? What murder is Sansa even quite aware of?
Exactly. He doesn't know any specifics. So that was the other thing. It's like, so I was like jumping in my seat like, oh, here it comes. I was like laughing because I didn't know how it was going to happen, but I knew it wasn't going to be Arya.
We usually have 10 or a dozen or so people over each Sunday to watch the episode. Yeah. And there was just a round of applause at that moment.
Clapping. Yeah. A bunch of friends clapped as soon as his throat was cut.
Yeses and laughs and just a round of applause just broke out.
Yeah, it was really funny. It was a great reaction. So that's kind of cool. So we have the kind of final scene with them of Arya and Sansa coming together and having their nice talk, and it was good banter. Arya's, but you're also still weird and annoying and creepy. Whatever. That was cool, kind of sisterly. And Arya's like, she's like, yeah, I kind of am. And she says, you wouldn't have survived. I wouldn't have survived what you did. And Sansa's like, you wouldn't have survived what I did. They're being cool to each other. That's what we wanted. We want to know. Again, it's one of those things that the way they got to this point was like, some problems with it, but we kind of knew they'd get here, and I'm glad they did, and it was a good resolution. It was one of those spots that maybe they didn't get there. Maybe I didn't like how they got there, but I'm really glad they got there.
It's kind of like the thing with the cliffhanger with Jaime falling into the water. When you do that, you leave all us viewers who are watching the episode and taking notes and having discussions online, YouTube videos. We're going to try to figure this out. What does this mean? Where's it going? So when you have these two sisters going at each other, we're taking it back. We're trying to figure it out. What could this be? And people start coming up with theories that Arya is really the waif right now. Like when you do something that's hard for us to accept, we come up with these weird theories to explain it. And so in the end, it's the simple thing. They're just working together to take out Littlefinger, but it's not the standard presentation. Usually we're seeing the POV of all these characters. When you have two different characters that we usually see the POV working together and not seeing any of that coordination, it's fair to call it bad writing, maybe,
Yeah.
But in the end, we get Littlefinger facing his comeuppance. We get the sisters bonding with each other, and maybe we stumble through how they get there, but they hit the moment that they need to for us to be happy with things. So,
super chat from Purple She-Wolf, who says, Arya acting as executioner for Sansa. Does it simply mean that the Stark kids work together as a collective wolf pack to carry out justice? That's kind of cool because, he who passes the sentence swings the sword. In this case, she who passes the sentence, sister, swings the dagger. But yeah, they kind of did. Yeah, they kind of did work together. And they worked together to bring him down too, because they set that all up. Like, it seems pretty clear that everyone in the room knew what was going on except for Littlefinger. Like the guards even knew what was up because like they looked right at him when he was accused. He was like, "What?" And no one, they were like, and Royce was like, "I'm not helping you." Like I've been wanting to get rid of you, man. I'm taking this opportunity. We have, but what's funny is a little bit of a subtle undertone to Arya and Sansa coming together there. They were looking the wrong way. They were looking out over Winterfell's front gate towards the south. And again, they are still largely not in the dark about the army. They know the army of the dead is there, but they haven't seen it. They haven't seen undead yet.
Yeah, they feel like they just accomplished this great thing, but relative perspective, when Jon shows up, they're like, Jon, guess what? We took out Littlefinger. He's like, who? Look.
He didn't matter.
Let me tell you something.
I didn't care about him, really. Like, he was another one of those dudes I just forgave.
Now, Jon might have cared if he came back to Winterfell and Littlefinger had successfully driven a wedge between them. Then Jon would know, what the heck is going on here?
It would be a problem.
So Jon wouldn't be the first time that Jon didn't give Sansa the proper credit for her position here. But
that's a good point. So it might be, and that was kind of how that scene transitioned. They're looking forward, and then it kind of comes up and moves forward and goes beyond them, and we go to the wall. One of my favorite images from all season is coming up on screen here, thanks to Ashea. This side view of the wall where it juts out into the sea, just so awesome, or just beautiful. And this is one of those kind of things that, it's a TV moment. You kind of know what's happening. You kind of know everything that's going to happen minus a few details. You're like, as soon as that walker shows up, you're like, the wall's coming down. They're not. They wouldn't just walk up to the wall and stand there. They're not just like, we're here to intimidate you. You knew, and it was like, the dragon can melt the wall or something. It was like, it's happening. And I knew that even more because of the soundtrack. I was listening to the soundtrack all weekend. The soundtrack was put out, I think, maybe last Thursday or not, pretty recently. And the final few titles of the songs were somewhat spoilery. It was like 4 songs from the end was "You Won't," like "No One Walks Away From Me," which is what Cersei said there, right? And it was like, and the scenes were in order. And like before that, there were scenes that corresponded to earlier episodes, and it all lined up. Like the first one was like Dragonstone, like really early on. That was like the first episode of the season. So it was like these songs are in order of the season, and the last 2 songs were "The Army of the Dead" and "Winter is Come." I was like, given our existing predictions and the likelihood of the wall coming down, I guess that's so. As soon as that dragon appears, the wall. So it's like everything that's going to happen, but it was still awesome. It was still like, wow, this is so cool. Look at that dragon. Look at that blue fire. I yelled shadow fire at the screen right before he breathed it, and he was like, Viserion is doing his thing. That's something we'll talk about more about on Wednesday, by the way, because that's obviously a book reference for anyone who caught that. And it was a blast, we'll say. He blasted the wall, and we had a blast watching it. It was a great payoff, even though we knew it was coming. It was one of those things that you just, until you experience it, you can't. It's just like the characters. Until they see the dead, they, you see that wall coming down. It's like, oh my God, the wall's coming down. We've known it was going to happen probably since the first episode of the first season. That thing's coming down one day. If you really were to sit down and think about it, I wonder if that wall is always going to be there. Like, nope. One day it's going to come down. We don't know when. Apparently 7 years later. And at first we're like worried about Tormund and Beric. But as we said earlier, they definitely survived. They got outside of the radius. They ran along the wall. And I suppose they'll just walk to the next castle. Or walk all the way to Castle Black. And
I'm sure the show won't bother to deal with this, but I imagine that in itself would be an adventure. They weren't prepared to go to the next castle.
yeah, they don't have food.
Do
or
they have
anything,
food, wood to burn? How are they?
Bad, yeah, they're in a bad way. Super chat from Remy Martin. Dany and Cersei are very good at ordering other people to kill. Will either of them personally kill someone next season? Nah. Everywhere Cersei goes, she goes to the mountain. and he almost killed. I really thought he was going to kill Jaime there. They really, because it was like, oh, he didn't kill Tyrion. Are they going to do a second false? I guess so.
I was, by the way, ready for that to happen. I thought that what might happen is that the mountain pulls a sword and swings, and Jaime blocks it with his gold hand, and Cersei's like, "Stop! Cut this out!" She might.
Yeah.
But they didn't quite go there. But I was ready for it to happen. It is a frustration I have. We've mentioned this a couple times that the willingness to kill off main characters seems to be gone. They do it a couple times up through season 4, but since season 4, I don't think we've really seen a major character.
It depends on how you define major, but I agree. There's this core that's been untouched.
I think there's 8 that there's just no way.
Yeah, we might finally get a chance of some of them dying in the final season. Yeah.
But it seems like beyond the 8 that there's no way. I might have even named 8 that there's no way a season or 2 ago. Season 4, I might have think that they were all still there at that time. But there's like 8 more beyond that I would not be surprised getting killed until now. I would be surprised now if Bronn died, because he just keeps living. I expect Bronn, Brienne, there's a bunch of
characters. Bronn was a top pick for death, all throughout season 5 and season 6. We were like, Bronn's toast.
And if they're not even willing to kill Tormund, well, then they're definitely not going to kill Bronn. That's where I'm at now.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating for me to be at that point,
I think that, you're right. I mean, there's still some characters that I wonder about, like Davos. Davos feels like he's in that second group 8, not that first group 8.
Right.
Davos is absolutely a huge fan favorite now, and they want to keep him around, but they might...
He doesn't put himself in harm's way, though. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm not suspicious of him dying in the first place, but Tormund does. Sandor does. Bronn does. And they still keep not dying anyway, so...
There's so much... just the level of destruction that happens at the wall here. Shay is pulling up this awesome image of the dragon breathing fire. This is just so cool. I love shots. We're going to be seeing this in memes forever, and good, because it's so cool. And just goes to show, what can they can do so much. I mean, like we talked about earlier briefly, can this dragon just take down the walls of Winterfell just by breathing at him, freeze it or burn it or weaken it so much that it just kind of collapses or something, or at least destroys the gate. They're so powerful.
I mean, we've already seen Danish dragons too, right?
Yeah.
And Jaime's like, we just can't beat this in the field. I guess we can go put up a fight, but we're not going to win this fight. Imagine when we see Dany's armies laid out there, all those Unsullied, right? Imagine a dragon just take them all out in one swoop. Generally speaking, a thing that they don't do accurately in most modern military movies is you see soldiers walking together. They don't walk that close to each other because they're more susceptible to grenades and mines. You keep spread out. But that's hard to show on film. It's hard to keep everyone as spread out as they need to be.
Yeah.
But that is a thing that they would need to do if they're really facing dragons. The armies can't be lined up in these dress formations. They have to be way more spread out because they get taken out way too.
And there is historical precedent for that. When the Dance of the Dragons happened, there were 18 or 19 living dragons. There were no large-scale battles. It was all small groups, small armies fighting small armies. Because of that exact thing. Don't get all together.
Yeah.
That just makes it easy for the dragons. So you got to do like the Dornish did, and don't stay in your castles. Just go off and hide in the mountains. Go off and don't have bases. Just scatter and come together for guerrilla tactics. That sort of thing. Yeah. So that might be what they have to do with the walkers. If we're all together, they can surround us and kill us, and then just take all the bodies and add it to their army. It's eesh. All right, a couple of super chats here. Leslie Powell, what will Melisandre do to help with the long night upon her return to Volantis? We're definitely going to have a few other comments about that later, but I do think that bringing followers of R'hllor is very likely, because I think that's something from the book that's not happening, but seems like it's foreshadowed.
Maybe she'll seduce the Night King.
Melisandre will become Night Queen. That's wow! What amazing if wow, what if Night King kills her and raises her?
That's interesting, but I just thought of something that's actually, I think, more likely. I cannot believe I didn't think of before.
She does say she's going to die.
Whatever Melisandre does, she might not even realize what it will be that happened, but how is she going to do it? What has she needed in the past? Sacrifice. King's blood. That's what Melisandre's going to do, is come back and say, hey, John, hey, Dany, someone.
Sacrifice Cersei. There you go. That's winning. That's 2 birds with 1 stone. Yeah. So, but if we can talk a little bit about what might happen after this. We talked about, like, Jon has that moment where he's talking about troop movement. He talks about sending the Unsullied on ships to White Harbor while the Dothraki march up the King's Road towards, just towards Winterfell, the straight road where maybe I had those backwards, but whatever. That might be, these plans might be interrupted by, I don't think they realize that the Night King, they certainly don't know the Night King's already through the wall. Like, they don't know how Night King's would get past the wall. They didn't see the dragon get raised. The dragon fell through the ice before they left. This may not have even occurred to them.
Yeah.
So Bran is going to be able to tell them, though, because Bran saw this. Remember, we saw the scene through, at first, Bran was looking through the Raven's eyes. Bran witnessed this. So Bran's immediately like, Sam, forget about all this Jon Sand stuff. We have a bigger problem.
Flying problem.
So that's maybe Sam was like, well, I've got some books on that. Tell me, and then maybe that's where part of season 8 begins, with some of them looking up answers to all that. But so many people, I know I talked about this a little bit before, but just think about all the people that are going to Winterfell. It's hard to imagine all these people living. Dany, her dragons, Jon, Tyrion, Missandei, Davos, Arya, Sansa, Brienne, Podrick, Sandor, Jaime. I mean, Bran himself,
And other people who it's not unlikely for Bronn to head that way.
Bronn maybe, or whatever. Or Tormund and Beric may have to flee the wall, and of course they might go to Winterfell. Dolorous Ed may have to flee to Winterfell if the wall, or may not flee, but just the Night King is just ignoring them because they're just a couple of humans in his rear. That's not a problem. So if they want to help, they need to come south. That's something we joked about, remember, before, like, maybe the safest place to be is beyond the wall now. Just there, the army of the dead's in the south. Just go off. Maybe it's not as cold up there now that they're gone.
Flee north.
Yeah, everybody flee north. Repair the wall and hide on that side.
Open the gates, go to the far. If they bring winter south with them, like, maybe it's actually warmer up there too.
Yeah, remember what it looked like when the children made the walkers? It was all verdant and green up there.
Be tradesies.
Yeah, just
Night King, you get King's Landing. We get the Arrowhead Mountains.
So maybe Littlefinger got off easy here. Maybe he's just got a knife to the throat. That's relatively quick to what the rest of the North is facing.
I hope they burn his body.
Yeah, white Littlefinger.
Advising the Night King.
Yeah, his little finger is still moving even after he's dead. Yeah, they know to burn the bodies, I think. Yeah. And we even saw the giants, the dead giants again. That was really cool, walking through there. I love how the army just walks up there, stands, and just like politely waits for the wall to come in. And just like, all right, let's keep going.
Again, yeah.
Waiting for that. Okay, let's get into some questions. We had some questions that we gathered ahead of time. And of course, there's still time to get in some super chats, but we are getting close to the end here. Looks like the dancing segue didn't steal too much time. Steal? It should have been the feature. We should have just killed the rest of the episode and just done nothing but dances.
All this Game of Thrones talk is getting away with my dancing.
First question is from the Snow in Winterfell. First thing I thought when Arya killed Baelish was that she could use that face next season. Maybe down in Kingsland. Maybe that's how Cersei goes down. Instead of sacrificing Cersei for King's blood to Melisandre, maybe we got this instead. Maybe, she didn't. Yeah, someone asked, did she slash his throat so the face was unharmed? Well, I don't know why you would stab him in the face anyway. It's not a very efficient way to kill somebody. But
let's think about how Arya's killed people in the past. Meryn Trent.
I guess she didn't want his face.
That's one way that you could kill someone.
We did not need that again. Like with Bran and Sansa watching, she's going to go with a nice, I'll tone down the ultra-violence with my family watching. But yeah, no, that's totally on the table. No, like, not everyone's going to know that Littlefinger was killed there, and they're not exactly about to betray our Cersei.
Yeah. If everyone did know, that means everyone was able to keep it secret from Littlefinger, which means they should be able to keep it. I'm suspicious whether or not everyone knew. Probably several key people knew, but not everyone. Yeah. But when they see where it's going, they're not going to argue against, clearly, what's happening here. So
maybe we can't have Aidan Gillen yet. Maybe he's not out of the show.
Yeah.
Maybe he's still going to come back as Arya. So maybe we can invite him on as a guest after all.
We'll know better than to suspect a flashback like we did with Walder Frey. Like, what's going on here? Like, I know exactly what's going on here.
Yeah, that's right. That's not a flashback. Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. Okay, so super chat from Mnet B. Could Viserion being able to continuously breathe fire because he doesn't need to breathe at all? It could be an advantage in the 2 first ones. That's interesting. That dragon was certainly just blowing it, just constant, like a blowtorch.
I had a couple thoughts to that end, by the way. One is that he may be empowered by the Night King.
Yeah.
But also he may be pushed farther by the Night King. Like, I want to go on this assumption that the dragons aren't just infinite, right? Like,
yeah.
In the same way that action heroes in movies, they're just guns just never run out of bullets or jam. You know what I mean? And that's not realistic. I feel like the dragon, there's some sort of biological process that's generating the fire. Maybe not. Maybe it's just pure magic and they just breathe fire infinitely. But I like to think that they run out of breath or they use up some energy or they have to recharge, you know. And maybe the Night King was putting everything into this one blast to bring the wall down, but the dragon might not be at full strength for some time to come, you know.
Yeah. I liked the touch of having the dragon have like small holes in his wings, like to reflect his dead status. That was cool.
Which does also, to the point that I had made in the past, that he's just magic. He could just be a skeleton flying. You know what I mean? Like, they don't necessarily need to have their wings intact to fly, because the way a person walks around is connective tissue. The muscles pulling on tendons connected to the bones make you walk, right?
You taking notes, everybody?
We see some straight up skeletons with no muscles or tendons. They still walk around. So it's magic that makes this work. So magic can make the dragon fly, whether or not it has wings or whatever. But maybe magic can make it breathe fire, even if it doesn't have oxygen, or maybe. But still, I want to think that the magic needs some recharging, you know. Or maybe some proximity to the north. The farther they get away from it, maybe the power diminishes. And
interesting, yeah.
Maybe that's part of what. Maybe I didn't think of this line, but maybe they have to lure the Night King farther south, abandon Winterfell, go to King's Landing, where the Night King's power isn't as strong. Yeah,
he will be weaker in Night King's Landing. That's his base. It'll be his new home now.
Well, maybe that's go all the way to Dorne.
Yeah, desert just doesn't seem like a hospitable place for an ice army of a dead ice army.
It might become a tundra when they get down there.
Question from Brittany Strickland, patron. So many questions this week. Why does Tyrion seem to think Podrick is on the other side of things? Isn't he still serving Brienne, who is in turn serving Starks? Is the encounter between Sandor and Ungregor the end of the Clegane Bowl show hype? And why didn't Jon mention that the undead can be killed by Valyrian steel? Okay, well, the first part, I don't think Tyrion thought Podrick was on the other side of things. I think that's what he said to Bronn. Maybe you got that crossed in your head there. I could be wrong. I'll have to watch again. Maybe I'm the one getting it crossed. But Tyrion and Podrick were happy to see each other, but I didn't get the we're on opposite sides vibe. I thought that was a Bronn thing.
I thought that he said a line along that lines.
Well, they had been on
Podrick
opposite
also,
sides.
but, yeah.
Maybe he was just referring to the past when they had been on opposite sides. Because, they clearly are on the same side now. Anyway, the second part of the question was about Sandor and Gregor. We weighed in on that. We think that Sandor's line was absolutely just fan service, not in a bad way, but, hype, just saying, yes, this is going to happen, but not now.
Patient hype.
Yeah, they were saying, be patient, but it's coming. They could have may as well hung a poster saying, get, Clegane Bowl 2K19. And the last part was, why didn't Jon mention that the undead can be killed by Valyrian steel? Maybe the same reason Bran said that I'm the only one who knows the truth, because even though Howland Reed knows the truth, because it just would confuse the issue.
It might also be relatively not important. How is that going to change their strategy?
Yeah.
They're still fundamentally going to do the same things, whether or not 2 or 4 people have Valyrian steel swords. It's
they can't do anything about it. Yeah,
it's like, all right, we've got 4 F-16s, 2 M1 Abram tanks, and 1,000 guys with M16s, and also I'm a crack shot with my sniper rifle. Okay, that's nice, but can we get some more M16s for everyone else?
Yeah. Lady Colfina Wolfart says, I think a lot of the issues with the show are writers rushing to an endpoint and not actually writing a story. Yeah, we've talked about before. We tend to agree with that. Is it would be nice for them to let some of this play out more evenly rather than rushing, because a lot of this is payoff. And you don't want to rush through the payoff. The payoff is kind of what we've been waiting for. But, what are you going to do? We'll enjoy what we get.
Let's say that they were as expert writers as George and had every intention of filling out the full storyline and the thoughts of the characters and the depth of the history behind everything. how long has it taken George to get this one book out, right?
Yeah.
How long would it take him to put all that on screen? They're making it for 20 years to get the actors are all going to grow up. There are some reasonable time restrictions on what they're able to do here.
Yeah.
So it's frustrating. Don't get me wrong. I'm as bothered by this stuff as other people, but I also realistically see that they have to get this on film without taking 3 generations. If now they can take 3 generations, Star Wars did, but it'll be new stories from different time periods and different characters.
Right on. Yeah, and of course, that's a good point. When you bring up Star Wars, there's a lot of people talking about the Rhaegar Lyanna scene and noticing the parallels to Star
Luke
Wars.
and Leia.
There. Yeah, yes. Or
Luke and Leia is more of
not Luke and Leia, but Anakin and Padme.
Yes, Luke and Leia is more of a parallel to John and Danny's.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Question from Andres Navarro. The showrunner said the fact that John is a Targ would create conflict between him and Danny. Do we think that will be the incest part or that the claim part? And it's funny, Andres, is that I don't know if this is me or you, but there's a small typo here where you wrote, or I put relationship instead of relationship. And that makes me think that's a great way for Theon to talk to people who are connected to him. It's like, what's your relationship to me? Like, especially if Theon becomes king later, king of the Iron Islands or something, or Asha's queen. Like, what's your relationship to him? Yeah. Anyway, to get to the actual question instead of my ridiculous punning, I think both of them will be big problems, and I think the incest part is a chance. The incest part is the bigger problem, but there's also if the claim part is a problem, it has the potential to be a bigger problem. I think the incest thing is maybe more likely to be a small problem, but is easier to get around. The claim thing might be harder to get around, but John could always just take the black again or something to set aside his claim.
I mean, it seems to me like Danny should just be like, oh, my bad, you're the one. She expects everyone else to accept her to be queen because that's just the rules of succession. Just like Stannis, it seems like when it certainly if it was presented to Stannis, if there was a different factor involved, he would have just, oh, that's right, you're the one. He would have just backed off, And
they
Melisandre would have argued, and he would have, no.
It's interesting to consider how Danny would consider the evidence. If it's in this book that Rhaegar had an annulment, and then this kid was born, like maybe she'll be skeptical about Bran. It's like, your brother and your best friend are the evidence here?
Yeah.
That might be problematic. Because Danny is just her, I was born to rule the Seven Kingdoms. I agree that maybe the law says what the law says and that should be that, but I don't know if it'll be that simple. But John might simplify it by being like, I don't want this. But he might... I don't think John's going to have ambition for this, even if it's revealed, which it probably will be revealed. But he might be all, well, I'm the king. That's the law. I don't want to be king, but he might be all Stannis-like and be like, this is the thing.
I think what's more likely is that he would recognize it as a way to unite people to fight the Night's King. That's the reason I think he would take on the responsibility.
Yeah, kind of like he did with King of the North, yeah.
The problem is that all the other people that might potentially get united have either been killed or effectively written out of the story, right? There's only one person left to convince, and that's Cersei. And this doesn't convince Cersei. This doesn't convince Cersei. So,
yeah.
Unless they try to give some perspective of what's going on in the rest of the kingdom, which maybe they can do in an 1.5 hour long episode, as we already considered the idea that they planted the seed of Sam telling the Maesters, the people trust you. If you send word out, they'll obey. So if they do that, right, and they send out word, and we see a bunch of lords reading this letter, you know what I mean? And in some of them believe or don't believe, right? And Cersei presses some of them, hey, you better ignore that message. I'm still your queen here. But then here comes Jon. Actually, I'm the real one, and even Dany agrees, and I got dragons behind me, and everyone agrees except for Cersei. You guys should join me. I'm the one true king. They might believe it. They might abandon Cersei at that point.
Yeah, that because Cersei hates Dany, but maybe she hates Jon less. And she was using her plan, using Jon's integrity as part of her plan.
Yeah.
So if she really trusts his integrity that much, it might actually.
And if she really is looking out for number one, part of her wanting to be queen is to have enough power to protect her family.
Yeah.
But if she thinks that Jon having enough power is protection for her family, I don't know. I don't see Cersei redeeming herself.
Yeah,
I don't think that's the direction we're going to go. But
okay, so question from Christian Mertes. Now, we've sort of answered this question already, but it's something you added here that I wanted to discuss. The question is, do you think the White Walkers had a plan B to bring down the wall, in case our heroes hadn't come up with the stellar idea of capturing a white, necessitating Dany to get them a dragon? And what was the narrative point of this whole storyline? Oh, Johnny, now my dragon died for nothing. I wouldn't say for nothing. He doomed us all. Yeah. Well, we talked about their possible plan B. Maybe that's why they had the chains, for example. Maybe they were going to climb, send a few, climbing whites up and then book the I don't know. But I think they had maybe some plan. Or maybe, like we talked about, it was, they have their own version of prophecy. They knew they were luring a dragon there. That was their plan A, and their plan B maybe was something else entirely. But I think that is really funny. That the goal, going to get a white, is why the White Walkers now have a way past the wall. They're like, maybe they never would have had a way past if not for giving them a dragon. It's just kind of an irony of everything. Someone made a comment. JoJo made a comment earlier that they wanted to braid that dude's beard so bad, and I imagine that you're the dude, not me, because my beard's not very braidable. Also, we got a lot of good suggestions for people to have as guests. In case you all missed the earlier part of this, we were discussing who we were going to have as guests in our traditional end of season fanfare, where we have fun episodes where we discuss some serious topics and do some real analysis, but we also like to just kind of geek out over what's happened and review the season as a whole. And it's a great opportunity for us to bring in guests. So keep sending guest suggestions in. We're certainly going to have a lot of give a lot of consideration to a lot of our regular people that we've had in the past. Obviously, Radio Westeros, LML, Shea, of course, who wouldn't be a guest, but she would be on it. McCall from Vassals of Kingsgrave, who we had last year. And there's a lot of other suggestions, people we haven't yet had. Some who I've been on guests with, and Shea has been guests with, and some with you as well. So we will do what we can, but of course, a lot of it will depend on their schedules. So we can't make any promises at this point.
Maybe we'll do 2 or 3 to work around all the different schedules.
Here's a absolutely, Sean. Here's a super chat from Brian Begnoche, or Brian Begnoche. Sorry if I said your name wrong. Pardons if you covered this. Why did Bran know Jon's parentage, but not about the marriage? He didn't watch the whole Werewood TV episode. That's right. Well, it just goes to show that Bran doesn't. He remembers everything, but he can't see everything. He has to know where to look. I mean, all of human history is a vast thing. And
he's still in season 3.
He saw the vision of Jon being born by Lyanna, so he knew that part, but he didn't, for whatever reason. And this is maybe the part that doesn't make sense, is that Bran didn't look for more in that. Maybe he didn't think there was anything else to see. Maybe he didn't think, oh, did they get married? He didn't. The one thing he maybe could have looked on was, did Rhaegar really kidnap and rape Lyanna? But he didn't necessarily have a reason to doubt that story.
Also, consider how long. Even if he knew both time and place to look, which is a lot, right?
Yeah.
It still takes time to do the looking. How long? Say he knew to go from that moment. Does he look forward or look back? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so say he starts looking back and he goes back a day, 3 days, a week. How far back does he have to go? Even if he lands and I would say he's like skipping around and he checks one day and he spends like 8 hours watching through the 8 hours of this day and nothing there. It goes to the next day, 8 hours. It's like, okay, let me just watch 15 minutes. Okay, nothing. Say he gets to the day where that wedding is and watches for 15 minutes. Like, there's nothing here. And moves on.
Yeah.
Imagine if you suddenly had the ability to see everything anywhere, anytime. How quick would you do it? And you say you wanted to go back and stop Hitler from taking over Germany. What day do you go? How long do you look? What's the right moment to be looking at there? It's a lot. It's a lot for him to absorb. He's new at this. He's not going to do it perfectly. He's not going to have. He had the guidance of the three-eyed raven to bring him to that moment of the Tower of Joy, both to know it was significant, to know where it was, and to know when it was. He doesn't have this guidance now, and that's something maybe Sam can provide. Is the right moments, the right places and times to be looking.
Perfect. Good explanation. All right. Let's see what other questions we have here. I'm picking through a few that are left here. We're going to wrap it up shortly. We've almost gone for 3 hours. And that's pretty awesome, but we can't go forever, even because we didn't get 6,000, so that's not a 20. We don't have enough for the 24-hour stream. Okay, what else do we have here? The children eventually lost control of Night King. Then we saw the White seemingly make an independent decision to walk across the ice. Do you think the Night King may not have complete control over all the Whites? Yeah, we talked about that them having some basic flight or fight. Probably not flight. There's nothing that would make the undead run away at this point, I don't think. But there's some, lingering lingering instincts in them, and it's something that's not fully explained. But yeah, we talked about that on episodes. Not to say we didn't, I didn't mean that as a negative, but we brought this concept up and talked about this and said, yeah, I think so. It does seem to be that they can do some things on their own. They're not just completely automatonic. Automaton? That's not a word. They're not complete automatons. There's some sort of stimulus they can respond to.
I wonder. I haven't gone down too deep this hole, but I've had a few conversations that come up because a lot of my friends also watch The Walking Dead, which, by the way, is also filmed here in Atlanta, and it's about zombies. We got all these zombies here, and so a lot of times they'll make assumptions about what the zombies do or how they work, and I point out, well, that's not. I don't know if that's necessarily true. Like, is there like a definition of what a zombie is, right?
Yeah.
And let's say there was. Is George exactly following that definition? And say he is. Are D&D? And say they are. Can there never be an exception to it? Because we already seem to see some exceptions to it. Like, Benjen behaves differently than Barrack behaves differently than the White Walkers, than the average white, So, I don't know. I just think that they seem to be actively avoiding some of the standard zombie tropes, like if it bites you or scratches you, whatever, you turn into one.
Yeah.
And so if they seem to be avoiding that one, they probably aren't following all the others either. So so that makes me wonder if the zombies can maybe, depending on how long they've been dead or the circumstances of their death, like maybe just a skeleton that's barely holding itself together, just go kill. But maybe a blacksmith that just died at Hardhome and got resurrected almost right after that might still be able to blacksmith. They definitely can work together as a team to pull on chains. It seems like they have
That's where they
some
got their
amount
chains.
of consciousness. They can use weapons, swords. So I wonder how capable they are beyond what you usually think of as just mindless droning zombies.
That's a good one. Question from Tara Bones. Is Daenerys going to be pregnant next season? Well, your guess is as good as ours, but John certainly threw shade on the idea that she can't have babies. It was yet another conversation interrupted by something more important or something more urgent that wasn't finished. She's like, did it ever occur to you that maybe she wasn't the best source of information? And then Tyrion's walking over and they're like, oh, hang on.
Yep.
And they never got back to that conversation. Next thing we see them is they're banging. So
It's probably their pillow talk that they just don't show us.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'm not sure. It's funny to think that, technically Mary Mazdur never actually said Dany can't have babies. That didn't actually happen. That was in the book only. It didn't actually happen in the show.
And even in the book, she doesn't exactly say that she can't. She says that you'll have babies when the sun rises.
Yeah.
She names a bunch of things that are impossible. When these impossible things happen, that's when you'll have babies.
But they could happen.
In some
could be
symbolic way, yeah.
Like
right.
mountains blowing in the leaves, or Mona Boleyn is like, well, the mountain dying, blowing, that kind of thing.
She also said that the Drogo would come back.
Yeah.
At that time.
Yeah.
So is Drogo coming back? Yeah. And I think she did say that in the show.
She did, yeah.
Right. So and I don't really think this, but hey, maybe we did talk about the idea of do the White Walkers care about Essos? That's how Drogon comes back.
Well, he's been burned.
He's been burned in a pyre.
Yeah,
That can't happen.
He's done. Yeah. He's only come back in visions, and he did come back in a vision.
Yeah. Maybe if Drogon is also her Son and Stars, and her Son and Stars comes back in the form of Jon.
It's supposed to be, he's supposed to be sort of in Drogon, I think. Yeah, it's kind of symbolic. Not necessarily literally, but maybe. Maybe his spirit is in there. I don't know. Slope says a Night King could just fly to Essos, kill a bunch of people, turn them into whites, and then have that and go from there. Well, the problem, he could. The problem with that is, I don't think he wants to alert the whole world that he's a thing to be dealt with. I think he would rather take people on piecemeal. I think that's why he wanted to stop the white from being captured. Because he didn't want humanity to unite against him. He was pretty content to let humanity tear itself apart and then come in when they're weaker.
On one hand, I agree with you, but on the other hand, I feel like it's just not necessary. He doesn't need to have some master strategy. Now, that said, I felt the same way about Dany. Dany's coming across with 2 armies and 3 dragons and a fleet, and sort of has 2 other armies in addition to that, and up against Cersei and her one. how is anyone going to stop this? That's kind of how I feel, that the Night King seems so powerful. His army is so big.
Yes.
And impervious to death. And he has a dragon that can just take out any cat. I don't know what the challenge is going to be. And part of that's what made me think that this storyline with Cersei and King's Landing and everything wouldn't be resolved this season, because we still need some drama next season. It can't just be 6 hour-and-a-half long episodes of battles. There's got to be some tension and drama to make us care about what's happening, some build-up, some ebb and flow to this. So I wonder what is going to be the challenge for the Night King. And simple answer is Bran. Bran somehow will be able to put a monkey wrench into plans. Maybe Euron. And I know that Euron has some mystical potential in the books that hasn't come out in the show. Well, he's still around as a character. Maybe that's part of him going off to Essos. He's going to come back with his horn, or with Melisandre, who have some, battalion of red priests that have some particular power or knowledge. Blood, king's blood from Jon might...
I didn't consider this whole idea of Euron going back to Essos. That's interesting. I mean, in terms of stuff like, in terms of him picking up some of his abandoned book plots, that's interesting. I'm still kind of down on the idea, but I like that. It's definitely at least worth considering that it's back on the table now.
Maybe it was just coincidence, right?
Yeah.
A lot of with Melisandre, maybe it's just coincidence that when she burned Shireen, that the storm clears over Winterfell.
Yeah.
It still didn't work out, and maybe it was just coincidence, but maybe it was some power. Maybe it wasn't the power that Melisandre thought, you know what I mean? But my point being that maybe if, for a great power, you need great sacrifice. If Jon is willing to sacrifice, or if Gendry gets sacrificed after all, maybe
Gendry.
Summer will come. Maybe a storm will clear around the Night King's army, and it'll at least give a reprieve for a battle, or define a line that they can't cross, or something along that line. Almost certainly some mystical thing has to happen. And the mystical things we've seen in the past, what are they? Melisandre and King's Blood. That's
there's always a cost for magic, is the theme.
Yeah.
Like, magic always comes at a price. There's never it's never just an easy, just cast a spell and that works. Yeah.
It does make it easier for Jon to sacrifice himself. Like, you remove these debates over who the proper heir is if Jon sacrifices himself to save the day. Okay, now Dany's just queen. There's no other challenge to the
I
lineage.
see Mike Bushnell has figured it out. He says that it's all a misunderstanding. He's not the Night King, he's the nice king. Well, that's he just now he could they should have let him speak, and then he could tell people he's just a nice guy, but he can't speak. It's all Euron cut his tongue out. We're figuring it all out here, guys. This is all coming to play. We've figured it all out. Yes, Game of Thrones is over. We solved it. Okay, I think that's about it for today. We have covered almost all the questions. There's a few that we kind of already answered. If you got
By almost all the questions, you mean we've covered 140 out of 200, and there's still 60 more, and we can't possibly do all of them.
Yeah, well, some of them are repeats, so I can say some of y'all, you'll get your question answered by going back to the beginning.
Yeah.
But yeah, some of the others that we maybe just didn't catch. But there's
Too
always
bad
Wednesday.
This is our last episode ever, and we'll never have a chance to address questions. Oh, we're going to do it on Wednesday? Okay,
Wednesday with
All right.
Radio Westeros and Ashea in front of the camera instead of running production. Well, she'll be doing both, as she does. And we will, again, we'll be scheduling some other end-of-season festivities with a variety of guests and more Sean. And we're trying to combine different groups, just like this season has done. Put people that have never been together in the same scene. We're going to try to do that with our fandom and put some of the different YouTubers and podcasters on screen at the same time and see what kind of fun stuff happens. Hopefully it's more of, Dany and Jon and not Cersei and Bronn. No, that won't happen. Everybody's cool about that sort of thing.
We'll see. It depends on who it is.
So let us do our acknowledgments and all that. And thank you, everybody, for being with us all season and going forward. It's been a lot of fun just hanging out with you guys. And
by the way, Shay, did you get Suzanne's images?
I didn't prep it. We'll do
No?
it.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, coming soon. We've got some images for House Beard.
Oh, yeah, that's
I
exciting.
want to put it at the beginning of the episode next week.
Okay, cool. So we'll have that. We'll hopefully have that ready by next week. We should, indeed. So let us give thanks to, certainly, as always, Ashea for doing all sorts of behind-the-scenes stuff. And thanks to Joey Townsend and Jesse Coal for our music. Thanks to Michael Klarfeld for the video intro. And he is working on an Iron Islands map, which we're really excited about. Some of us have done some modeling for it, which is which is always fun to be a map model. Modeling for historical figures. Modeling to be an ancient historical Ironborn figure.
For those of you who don't know, this is actually his map right here,
Yeah,
right?
both of these,
and
yeah.
he does a map, but he surrounds the map with lore and imagery of different characters and moments from history. It's really awesome.
Intro and outro video.
Yeah, I said that.
Okay.
Yeah.
It bears re-mention. He did our intro-outro video. So yes, very talented graphic designer, multi-talented guy. Very helpful, very friendly. And again, thanks to you guys for showing up. These live streams are so much better with a large group of y'all having fun together, chatting at us, chatting with each other. And we want to keep that going. We want to keep this a strong aspect. It's one of the strengths of our community. And we'll do what we can to support it and to give you all a good place to come hang out. So, and a lot of that, having this space to hang out and having all this come together is in large part thanks to our patrons. So let's give thanks to them. Starting with the mysterious BR, Hand of the King. Also Lord Michael Valerian, Knight of High Tide and Guardian of the DeLorean, Hand of the Queen.
Oh, and we have Lady Suzanne Sinistral, the learned holder of the left-handed Valerian shears called Penance, Hand of the Beard.
Yes. And also Sir Valentin of House DeGen, creator of the Game of Predictions website that I was mentioning earlier. Go check that out. There's a link to it on our supporters page at historyofwesteros.com. Welcome to Charlotte Ostra, Corsair Queen of the Western Shivering Sea, commander of the Briny Fleet, whose flagship is the barnacle-encrusted, violet-hulled Mercenaria. She carries the nacre-inlaid, shucking blade, Crass Lover. Nice. Also thanks to Lord Jim the Fortuitous of Wars and Politics of Ice and Fire blog and Warden of the West, Lord George Stormsville the Cunning, Lord of the Chiliad and Warden of the East, Kabeth the Unfrozen, Lord of the Bricks and Castle Crimson Light, Defender of the Old Gods and Warden of the North. They really could use a guy who goes by that name right now. Someone who doesn't freeze would be very useful right now. Lady Kelly McMath of Covington is Lady of the Villa Hills and Crescent Springs, Warden of the South. Lord Osborne of Castle Werewoods is spreading the old gods by planting werewood saplings in the Reach, Stormlands, and Crownlands, and maybe overseas. His motto, Our Roots Run Deep, or rather his house's motto is Our Roots Run Deep. Lord James Tuttle is King of the Stepstones and Narrow Sea, commander of the Royal Fleet, consisting of the Narrow Fleet led by the flagship Caraxes and the Bloodstone Fleet led by the flagship Prince Daemon. Our small council consists of Lord James Inkblade, the Scholar Knight, Master of Whisperers, Grand Maester Saria of the Barrows, Cinder of the Citadel, Lord Robert Jacobs, Master of Coin, and Rosie the Clever, Master of Laws. We do not have a Master of Ships, thanks to King James Tuttle sailing off and becoming King of the Narrow Sea, so we could use your help, perhaps. Our lords and ladies in their castles include Lady Direliz of Castle Naki, the Alpha Patron, Lord Dan of the Red Mountains and Castle Great Bell is Breaker the Second Stone, Lord Skip of the Veldt is Lord of Castle Ganges, Gregor the Toasty, Lord of the Bread Fort, Alicia Everlasting is of the Greenblood, Lady of Desert Rose, Lord Ryan of Castle Stonegate is Guardian of the Rocky Mountain Pass, Lord Garin de Haviland is of Devil's Hand Keep, Ashlyn Winter is the Hawkseye, Lady of Castle Skyfall, Lady Mikkel of Moonacre is leader of the Werewood Protectorate Alliance. The Lord of the Halls of Castle Hillcrest is the wielder of the Valyrian steel machete Everglazed. Lord Alistair Whitaker is Lord of the Dawnhold. Lord Bemmy Snugglebunny is guardian of the hidden 100-acre werewood and holder of the Vorpal Snugglebunny. Lord Brandon Brewer is of Castle Blackroon, sworn alesmith to House Stark, Grand Master of the Zithomancer's Guild and keeper of the Buzz. Brian the Defender is Lord of the Spearfort and the Freelands, last scion of Clan McCulloch, motto strength and courage. The Bastard of the Wolfswood is First Forester of the Old Gods, sworn to House Iron Werewood, motto, listen for the silence. Connor the Dungeon Master is Lord of Catamount Keep and Guardian of the Smoky Mountain Pass. Our King's Justice is Sir Troy the Steady, wielder of the Valyrian steel blade Fate. Our Queen's High Council consists of Lady Jane of House Celtigar, the Emerald of the Evening, wielder of the Valyrian steel axe, Painkiller, and Mistress of Sea Eagles, Mistress of Ships. Lady Mai of House Swan is Mistress of Whisperers. Ely of Upstate is Master of Coin. Grand Maester M. Elizabeth is middle daughter of Lyanna Mormont, First Lady to forge both the silver and Valyrian steel links. Lady E.S. is Master of Laws. Our Council of the Beard is led by
Grand Maester Clark, Protector of Wisdom and Beards.
Yes. We have Queen of Love and Beauty, Casey of House Chickawawa, from Tormund Giantswang, Our Love is Forever. Our Kingsguard is commanded by Lord Commander Sir Christopher Dane of Starfall, Sentinel of the Torrentine. Our Queen's Guard is commanded by Lord Captain Commander Haima Helminth, the Sellsword Sentinel. And our Beard Guard consists of
Lord Commander George the Golden, Sir Joshua Oakhart, the White Oak, and Lady Rita of the Coppermane, the Unbound. Dance the fervor.
That's right. Now you've got another Beard Guard member who just joined. We'll get a nickname in there soon as well. And last but not least, of course, the History of Westeros' Night's Watch, led by Lord Commander Daenerys Flint of the Night Fort, who is avenging the memory of brave Dany. First Ranger Fabian Flowers, the Bastard of Greenshield. First Builder Patchface of Motley Wisdom. And First Steward Sir Jurion of the Torrentine, called Palewind. Thanks to everybody. We had an extra long stream today, so I didn't actually have time to grab any random extra patrons whose names I like to say, but I'll grab a few here just by looking. How about Dutch of House Lombroski, Defender of the Berm? How about Red Raven, the Lady Warrior and Mother of the Emerald Dragon? How about Matthew Snow, illegitimate heir to the Emerald Isle, wielder of House Blackmont's sacred Valyrian Steelblade Darkheart? How about Lady Sarah, keeper of Nath's butterflies and wielder of the Red Valyrian Pen? How about Sir Jacob of House Dane? How about Sir Fabian Storm? And how about Sharma Steelgrip of the Red Mountains?
How about them apples?
How about that's the end of our episode? How about Valar reread us? How about Valar rewatch us? How about Valar see you all soon for our next live stream?
Valar, we dance us.
But